6'7". 6'7".
Yeah.
Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it can be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs. Episode 89, we've got some snow coming. Mm-hmm. So we are taping this on a Saturday, where we typically have all the results on a Sunday when we tape it on a Saturday, making sure that we were able to get into our facility to be able to film this week, to be able to get you some content this week, because this past week was an outstanding week of high school basketball.
No question.
And just overall, we want to be able to celebrate it a good bit. So how are you doing today, Shayne?
Oh, doing great. I think we tried to, plan accordingly. The way I see a lot of teams and athletic directors are doing here on this Saturday, moving some things up. I thought that was well done, because you don't know what the upcoming week's going to bring.
Exactly.
And some schools already backed up, so thought that was well done. Some people playing as we record here this afternoon. But hey, before we get started, I do want to say real quick, if you don't mind, thank you so much to the feedback. This past show was by far my biggest feedback in terms of fan participation or just coaching participation or parent participation. We talked small school and things that impact those last week. And I won't go into those details. It's at the 6-minute mark of last week's show, if you want to go back, if you didn't have a chance. But I appreciate the feedback on those factors. The one that was added to me talked about discipline at the small school, and how sometimes it's a little bit harder where, the bigger enrollments or different things like that. A lot of times they kind of, weed those attitudes out throughout junior high, throughout freshman ball, throughout JV. It's a smaller school a lot of times. I always say certain kids can hold a program hostage, and those relationship pieces become really important. So we talked about coaching turnover, we talked about, all of these different factors, scheduling, and we talked about the specialization. But I think it was a great point in terms of relationship with your kids and the ability to keep them at your school. In today's transfer portal, sometimes it's not who you get in, it's who you keep.
Right.
And I just thought there was some really good feedback. I had some small school coaches reach out, and you could tell that we were speaking some of the same language. But I'll be honest, some of the big school coaches, parents, even had one player I talked to. It was really an interesting conversation, real mature high school kid. And I just that's why I was doing this, was just try to get some feedback and some education on it moving forward, because look, times are changing a little bit in the landscape, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's one of the things we really like, is whenever people do reach out. Our topic for this, or one of our topics, because we're going to talk about a little bit of weather too. Mm-hmm. One of our topics came from someone reached out to us and wanted to hear us talk about something that involves the tournament coming up. So that's going to be one of our discussion pieces that we're going to talk about. Just there's a lot of things out there right now that are changing, are developing, and one of the cool things about that, being up at the OHS BCA clinic this week, was a lot of the college coaches are talking about adapting.
Yes.
Like when you hear two different guys that won national championships in college baseball talk about adapting, like, hey, we're old school, but we got to adapt. And it's you have to adapt if you're at the small school, you have to adapt if you're at the big school, and it's different factors. There's always factors everywhere that impact almost every decision out there.
It's so funny you say that, because we don't do a ton of show prep. We have an outline or whatever, but it's funny you say that, because this is the first time in 30 years that I will not be coaching high school baseball. It's the first time in 25 plus years I haven't been up at that clinic. And part of that decision was a little bit of the adapting. I still have an incredible love for a lot of things that go into coaching, and that's why I love what we're doing here and so forth. But I think you're spot on, and I think part of last week's discussion that I opened with, part of this week's discussion that you're going to be talking about, that a local coach had reached out to us on, I think that's part of adapting. And I think that's where it's fascinating to get involved in those things and to constantly keep yourself educated on what's going on.
Yep, and we'll talk a little bit more about adapting with what this current weekend has done here in just a few minutes. But just a few things for our stuff with Southern Ohio Sports Authority. We do have the basketball classic that will be coming up at Jackson High School on February 7th. We've got a really good schedule coming up on that. If you can't make it, all the games will be streamed, but it's only going to be $7 at the gate for all 6 games. Now, if you only want to come for one, and that's what you're paying for that one game anyway. But if you want to come for all 6 games, $7. You know, one ticket gets you in. Jackson will be providing the concessions. Really a lot of parking there, and should be a pretty good schedule. So keep in mind that's going to be coming up here in 2 weeks on February 7th. And then we also have, normally we talk about our stream games throughout the week. Well, we do have a couple that we're going to talk about later. We don't really know because the weather that's coming up and it's ever changing. So it really could be not very much, but we've adapted. As we said, we moved our normal Sunday show that we tape here to Saturday. The Haynes-Stoll Healthcare Coaches Call-In show will not be happening this week. We are going to take the week off. It will resume next Sunday as well. And then the Sunday after will be adapting to an earlier time because of Super Bowl Sunday. So, just always got to adapt and everything. So make sure you reach out to us if you have any comments, questions, concerns. If we missed anything, let us know as well because we want to make sure we get everything right. Our website, sosaohio.com. Check that out for latest articles. You can also find all the information on the SOSA Dugout, which is at sosadugout.com. You can also find that on the SOSA Ohio page to schedule when you want to come in. I put the walkthrough on the YouTube page. It's now in the shorts area as well. So if you want to see what the facility looks like or what it looked like on opening day, it's still evolving and adapting every day. Like we came in and they're putting together something new as we came. So just it's an outstanding facility. I think if you get in, see it yourself, you're going to want to come back. And if not, just look for some of the videos that are coming out, and then you'll be like, oh, man, I got to get in there because it's a really good chance to get better.
Yeah, feedback's been really good. Yeah. I mean, and that's why I said last week, you just owe it to yourself to see it. And then if you see it and it's not for you, then that's okay too. But like if you're a baseball, softball person of any age, just kind of casual fun or serious about just getting better. I mean, this is the type of place that gives you a nice little private area to work, and it has all sorts of resources and different technology. It's a lot of fun, and I'm getting really, really good feedback. I think once the word gets out more and more over the next month, it's going to continue to take off.
Yeah, our second group was actually a group of adult coaches that are coaching in Little League. They wanted to come in and see what it was like for their kids. Yes. They're going to be back in a few hours.
So they said. I mean, they might want to get.
They're going to be back in here in a few hours because they had so much fun competing against each other on the Hit Tracks system. So
it's always good to use the kids as the excuse. Yeah, we're just coming in and see what it's like for the kids.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So it's a really cool atmosphere and everything as well. So I think we may have some walk-ins today. So if you hear some dinging in the background of on our mics, I think we're good. I don't think you're going to hear it, but just in case, that means someone just probably, pieced one up and is pretty excited in there about how well they hit. So that's the dugout. Opened last Wednesday. It's going to start filling up throughout. I know there's going to be some, we just picked up a new instructor today as well, and then there will be some different high school coaches coming in to do some clinics on weekends coming up before their baseball and softball seasons get going. So remember the softball part of that. We've got some really big time coaches from softball coming in to run some clinics in here. I think it's going to be limited to 10 kids per hour, but they'll be here for multiple hours, and that should be announced sometime this week.
That's awesome. And that's really good. Just, again, take advantage of it.
Yeah, and it better be announced this week because we're all going to have some time. It's because right now I'm not Snowmageddon. Is that what people are saying? So, it's Saturday. A lot of games got adjusted. We were supposed to do Southern at Southeastern tonight, and we're not able to do it because I think it was overall a safety issue with that, which is be safe, 100%. And I know we had talked about maybe they could have moved it up, but I think. As here in a few minutes, Southeastern is actually playing a girls game this afternoon.
They are.
So it makes it more difficult to try to push everything up. So we hope everyone's
Is that
safe.
the Westfall game that we had the first round? Remember, we had a good buzzer beater now up there at the Dome. So that should be a good one over there at Southeastern today.
Yeah, and if you've got some time, which I think a lot of people are going to have some time over the next few days, check out some of our past games, our past episodes. Bad Company did a fun episode last week. I mean, it got the most traction that they've gotten so far. So, I mean, they've done a few interesting shows. So go back and watch some of their older ones as well. A lot of our interviews, a lot of our highlight series. If, the OHSBCA Hall of Fame Banquet is on there as well from this week.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I appreciate SOSA doing that. Like I said, someone who's been up there all the years I have, not going this year, obviously was working during the live part of that. I was able to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting coaches, even if none of them were from directly in the Southeast.
If you love coaching, you just appreciate relationships. You appreciate the way they kind of looked back on their career, told some funny stories. Especially in earlier parts of their career. The one talking about his wedding date.
Yes.
It was just some really good stories. I enjoyed that.
Yes, it was definitely an entertaining time for sure. So appreciate Jacob Wise going up with me to help me get that all organized to make sure we got on the stream. Okay, and the Hilton at Easton was really good about getting that all set up as well. So now this is still going in within our discussion of the weather. Yep. So with the weather coming, right now we're still technically scheduled on Monday to do a live stream. We aren't even going to talk about it because probably not going to be able to have it. So we don't want to throw it out and try to guarantee that we'll be there on another date because it may already be filled with the rest of our schedule, or the rest of our schedule is full and ready to go. We just, have to kind of see on some of these dates that are coming up and changing. So those will be going out here in the next few days as well. But, when you're in a weather emergency, we'll say, a lot of schools won't let the lower levels practice, but they'll let the varsity practice. If you've got a big game, we'll just use your brother's teams. So like Unioto, Zane, Trace coming up on Friday. Will be a stream game here on SOSA. You've got a big game on Friday. For Coach Cassidy, Coach Combs, when they look at this week, okay, Tuesday games probably aren't getting played. What do you look at when it comes to practice for this week? Because, weather emergency, it can be really difficult to, try to get everyone there safely. Safety is the biggest thing, because in the end, it's a game. But we want to make sure the kids are safe and everything. So how did you look at it when coaching during like a weather emergency?
Yeah, I think every team's a little different. I think every situation's a little different. What we're doing with right now, John, is we're a little deeper into the year. Okay, we're in the home stretch, so to speak. We're probably in girls, we're down to about the last quarter of the season. Boys, we're down to about, what would you say, the last third?
Yeah.
And so I think you're in a little different situation. The Zane, Trace, and Unioto teams had a little bit of experience back. They blended in some new people. By now, I think a lot of them, they're kind of good in their identity. They're good in a lot of their different things. Staying with that example, I don't want to speak for those two good coaches, but I would imagine a day or two off is not the end of the world. Just physically, mentally, knowing how basketball season is. I think what it also allows you to do over the next 48 to 72 hours, I know how hard those coaches prepare. So you can start to get all your preparation in place. You can catch up on your film work, on yourself as well as your opponent. You can get all the things organized there. If the snow would linger an extra day or two in terms of road conditions, today's technology allows you to get some scouting information, get some film work in. It's not like kids are doing a whole lot during this stretch too, so you can do some scouting there. I think as long as you're back in the gym there, hopefully by a Tuesday afternoon, I don't know that it impacts the preparation too awfully bad for any one team. Now, if you are in a league or in a non-league situation where you're scheduled to play like a Wednesday or Thursday night, and then all of a sudden you do that, you go. But what I've always said is in most cases, both sides are facing the same thing. Now, as you said, maybe you have a different administration rule or whatnot, but again, when you ask me that question, I think of the rest probably isn't the end of the world for a day or two. Now, if it lingers into 3 or 4, it is, but a rest for a day or two. Really take pride in your film work, your preparation, getting ready to go, and then from there, working with your administration to try to see how you could safely get back on routine maybe by Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, so if you can get back Tuesday afternoon, outstanding, and just a safety thing, big thing on that, because you don't want to go too quickly to try to get there and have to meet with Perfection One, our sponsor for
that's well said.
Yeah, so we appreciate Perfection One, Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, those two as making sure we can do these shows and everything else. But with games probably getting snowed out, Saturday night, Monday, maybe Tuesday. When you're talking about making games up, how important is it to look at when the games can be played, what the importance of them also, because if you don't get them in before the tournament draw, obviously you want to get all 22 games in, but are you putting your team at risk to try to force in some games and play on back-to-back days, 3 out of 4 days? Like, how important is it to really look at how your schedule's laid out to make up these games?
Yeah, I'm old, so I think back to the way it once was, in terms of it wasn't that big a deal to play Friday, Saturday, Tuesday.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, we're talking about 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. I don't know how much I just panic if all of a sudden they're playing, 3 times a week or 4 times a week, one time. You know what I mean? But what I would say, and it's funny you asked the question because I'm going to sound repetitive as we get into the next conversation as well. Telling you, you've heard me say this before, that the head coach, athletic director relationship is really, really important. You can't get just pushed into, if one side doesn't have good leadership or good communication, the other side can really take over and dictate the schedule, and there can be an advantage, right? Because all of a sudden, if I'm playing the 3rd game in 4 days and you're playing 1, you know what I mean? Or like, that doesn't fit my schedule. So it does have to be an agreement of what is the best makeup day. And I've seen examples of that where certain schools say, hey, can we play here? And the other person just says, yeah, we're open. Well, just because we're open doesn't mean that's when we should be playing. You know what I mean? Like, the head coach might have a little different opinion than the AD is just given. So that's really, really important. I mean, I'm telling you, that stuff happens, and there has to be some involvement from the head coach there. But no, I mean, I think that you do owe it to your kids and your program to get your 22 games in. I think, kids only get to do this the one time. I say maximize your schedule. Your team is chasing win totals. Your individuals are chasing individual totals. All those things within a team concept are fine with me. I think you owe it to your program to play 22 games.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. So, let's jump to our next piece, which is going to be one of our big discussions for the week. It's going to be scheduling with the new RPI, with how the RPI is, I think it's a ratings percentage index, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm dumb. So, but with the Max Preps RPI, it's used to rank the teams, which uses strength of schedule, your win percentage. I think it's your opponent's
win percentage. Your opponent's win percentage. Yeah.
And so it factors in all of those things. I think a school like a Marietta, a Steubenville, those are some really good teams at Division III. I think they've got some kind of crazy things on theirs because of out-of-state opponents. Because like they both have played, we talked about it last week, that really good Wheeling Central Catholic team, and I think that counts the same as if you play a really bad team from West Virginia as well. So I think it's as far as quality goes. So it can maybe impact those schools in that way, but it's big. It's one of the things over, is it 2 years now that we've done it? I think this is the third.
This is
or maybe this is the second. But
I thought it was it might be the third for.
But I mean,
Second.
yeah. So it's gonna spit out a number, and it's gonna rank the teams,
Yeah.
and then that way the coaches. And now, if you're gonna do a super sectional or super district now, since we don't have the sectional anymore, we'll talk about that in the spring, because I know you're gonna be real pumped about that too. So, when you go into that super district, you're ranking the teams across the district. Well, probably Waterford and White Oak haven't seen each other. So it's hard for them to rank each other accordingly, besides by schedule or by record. So by doing this, probably a more fair way, but it also takes out almost all of the human factor outside of the results itself. So how do you feel about it? And then we'll get into like kind of the intricacies of it.
Yeah, I'll just start with an opinion of it. I want to be consistent on record of saying I agree with the movement to use some technology, to use some math, use some formulas to do this. I think we could tell stories till we're blue in the face about where the old system was starting to get and some of the different ways that people were kind of maneuvering around and manipulating and so forth. I am in total favor of there being a system that calculates this. I was patient early on because I think, like with anything, you've got to look at how numbers work, get familiar with the thing, tweak a couple numbers. I will say this. The movement of the numbers in this particular year is I'm starting to lose my patience, because what I mean by that is, if it was like a winning percentage of 40 and opponents 35, it's my understanding now that they've evened that up at 40-40. Well, I think they went the wrong way. Yeah. I mean, to me, there still has to be an accountability for you winning.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, it doesn't, I could play anybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, but there has to be an accountability for winning as well. So there's some issues in the numbers itself that I think, in my opinion, is moving the wrong way. But then, so I believe it's a 40-40-20 now in terms of winning, opponent winning,
yes.
and then the opponents. So, in my opinion, those top two numbers went the wrong way. I think there's got to be a little bit more of a gap. I don't know if it's a 50-40-10, a 60-30-10, but I don't know that I agree with those numbers becoming even. But I guess that's where I would start, just on your first question, is I'm in favor of a system. I've tried to be patient with the numbers. I've lost a little patience in this particular move because I think the numbers are moving the wrong way. But at the end of the day, if it's a system out there and it's consistent and people become aware of it, it's kind of like the football computer points took a minute. Mm-hmm. People start to figure it out, then it's a fair way. And I think we need to play all 22 games and spit them out at the end of the year.
Yeah, because the way scouting is done now, it really shouldn't impact it in that big of a way. So I do completely agree that all 22 should be played.
Absolutely.
Especially when they're starting the tournament anyway, because you're going to have at least a week off from your last game until, or maybe not even the all 22 played, because let's say
there's some that, like, if they get a bye, they're off, like someone told me the other day, they could be off like 15 days.
Right. Yeah, I know that was a lot of adjustments were made. I know the SVC and girls actually pushed one of the late games back a week to try to help some of those scheduling, because it was just kind of crazy with how separated it was going to be. Yeah. But now, like, there's a really good game that got moved because the Battle of the 740 got canceled, and so Ironton, Chillicothe each had an opening. They're going to play on February 17th. So if you put, I think some places are starting their tournament around that time, and the girls are playing that night. But so I think if you said, okay, February 14th, which is a Saturday, all your games up to that point count. Because then it's like, okay, if the tournament starts on the 20th, you do have to have everything in. But you would still have some teams go like, hey, we'll play somebody really tough after that to not mess with our stuff. Yeah. But I do think that it is important to get as many games in as possible, because then with the more information, the better, the bigger the sample size, because you're not having the small sample size anymore. So let's talk about scheduling within that. So when you're scheduling with the new RPI, obviously you want to get wins. That's key. You want to be able to challenge your team. You don't want to challenge your team. I'll use the Harvest Prep football team. You don't want to challenge your team so much that they miss the playoffs altogether. Now, basketball, you're not going to miss the playoffs, but it could really hurt you on the seeding. Coach Taylor last night from Unioto, he did say, I don't care where I'm seated. Just tell me who I'm playing, when I'm playing. You got to beat them anyway. Well, that is fair, but you also want to have the seeding.
It's also coming from a 30-year Hall of Fame coach who has been there, done that. I don't know that I would have that same philosophy if I was bringing a program from the mat. And, obviously, Coach Taylor and I go way back. I respect him to the end of earth and back. And knowing him, it doesn't surprise me he said that. Right. But you understand what I'm saying? Is 100%. Like, he's saying that at this point. Again, if you're not coaching that particular group,
well,
that may not be the strategy.
I coached with someone that after year 2 might have been on the verge of losing their job. Year 3, lighten the schedule up a little bit, get some wins, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, it's starting to turn around, and then he ends up being the school's all-time winningest coach.
Right.
So, I mean, it is important to schedule based on your team. So evaluating your team. So when you look at how good your team's going to be, but also you have to think about how good your opponents are going to be, because you don't want to schedule, let's say a team goes to the Final Four the year before, but they're very senior heavy. Well, if you go out and schedule them the next year, knowing, that they're losing all those, well, that may hurt your RPI in the end. You might get a win, but it may hurt your RPI in the end. But you say, okay, that team, they went to the Final Four, but man, they got 4 kids back in the rotation. Maybe we do want to play them because they got some experience and it might be a winnable game. How would you look at it as far as evaluating your opponent and then evaluating your own team?
Here's some baseline advice I would give to people on this, and I've really, really thought about this for quite a while. I'm going to repeat something I said earlier. If you do not have the proper relationship with your athletic director, this will never work. So your AD and your head coach have to operate either together as one, or the head coach has to be given 100% complete control of all scheduling in his or her program. So that relationship, if it's not good, you're in trouble. Number 2, I would never go anything longer than a 2-year contract. You start going into a 3, 4, 5, 6-year contract with the way today's high school landscape is, you're going to run into things where, how many times do we see examples of where teams now who are just fighting like heck to try to get to 10 wins are playing a schedule that was built for a team 2 years ago, and those kids are off in college now, and you're still playing that schedule. Or the other way around, you know what I mean? Like you're still playing the easier schedule and you want to up your schedule. Now it's more important than ever because of the numbers. So the foundation is AD, head coach relationship, no more than 2-year contract. And I think what that allows you to do is it allows you to keep a constant proper picture of where you're at as a program. And as you said, where are the opponents? What's my league like? Am I going to get a lot of support from my league in these numbers? Well, wait a minute, our leagues are down a little bit. Because you and I have been around long enough to see that a league may go through a time where their non-conference record is really, really good for 2 or 3 years. Well, then all of a sudden the league kind of rebuilds, and all of a sudden you may be getting hurt by some of the records in your league. But you'll know that on a 2-year picture, and you'll know how to properly schedule in your non-league. I would say this. The other part is where your program's at and where it's consistently been, where you think it's consistently going. The head coach usually has a pretty good feel, especially if he or she's been there a couple years now. They have a pretty good feel for what groups are going to be able to do what. And you can start to recognize that, all right, we have started to establish ourselves, and we've been winning seasons now 2, 3, 4 years in a row, but we don't feel prepared in the tournament. Well, now all of a sudden that Tony Taylor type of philosophy maybe starting to come in of like, man, I got to get my kids ready no matter what seed I am. But if you're a program that's struggling to win, the seed's the least of your concerns, because you can say, well, you got to have them ready for tournament or whatever. Well, that's easy to say until you go through 3 or 4 straight regular seasons where you struggle to win 5 games a year. Culture is going to be, like you just said it a second ago, people are going to be fired. People aren't going to be renewed. Culture, parents are upset. Kids want to leave. Kids want to do that. So you see what I'm saying? So I think the foundation of it has to be winning. Then as you consistently win, now you're moving into more of the numbers game in kind of what I'm talking about in the tier contract. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then let's jump to, you mentioned the league a little bit. So let's talk about the bigger and smaller leagues. Now, maybe we don't have like huge differences in league size. I mean, I guess technically the SOC has 18 teams, but they're split into 3 divisions. What are some of the advantages to maybe you play in a 6-school division as opposed to an 8-school division? Now, when we talk about the Shack, they have 2 5-school divisions, but they overlap, so they have 13 league games. An 8-team league has 14 league games. A 6-team will have 10 league games. So, what are some of the advantages to being able to have more, more non-conference games to schedule? And some of the disadvantages as well.
Well, number one, the advantage is you have more control of your schedule. I mean, that's the obvious math problem, right? The smaller your league, you have more. Like I've been on record at Paint Valley, being the smallest school in the SVC for quite some time now, that I think Paint Valley could have completely benefited over the last decade being independent. I've said that. And why am I saying that? Because of control of your schedule in terms of who your kids are playing against in order to that foundation level and move up. Now, if you're, depending on how good your league is, some years it could help you. If your league is down, it can hurt you, and you have no control over that. That's kind of the unfortunate part of that. I will say this: you mentioned some leagues that have really, what's the word I want to use? Modernize. Okay, maybe I'll offend somebody here. That's okay. Just put a message down there. The SOC. They've modernized 3 levels, keep some different rivalries, keep a feel of conference, but we're in the divisions. What the Shack has done is genius. I mean, they if I'm not mistaken, the Shack realigns it based on enrollment every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Genius. Like they move groups, and then they still play one crossover game to keep the unity of a whole conference rather than just division.
Yeah, so like in case you don't know, Peebles went from the SOC 1 to the SOC 2 this year because their enrollment dropped below, I think it was West Union jumped them to move up into the SOC 1. So now Peebles still, which was one of our best games of the year, Peebles still plays Eastern Brown once in league. And where they would have played twice in league, but you still have that one game against them, and now maybe in 2 years, Peoples might move their way back up, and you just kind of go from there. So that's kind of how the Shack does it.
That's really well described, because, like, if you go back to our Side of Valley Conference, you're talking about, 2 schools in Division 4 all the way down to several in D5 and 6, and then even one that in most sports is 7 and going to be 7 even here in a year or two and everything. So my point is, there's also little weights in this formula, not to make too much of a math problem out of it, but the higher divisions have now had weight totals. Because like what you're saying about West Virginia, I believe in year 1 used to be the no difference, what I mean, between playing Upper Arlington or playing Green.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's the factor of who you are forced to play. Well, sure, it impacts you. And I don't know what you do about that other than really start to look at what conference. I think realignment of conferences is at an all-time importance as this moves in terms of our competitive balance. And I think the league's starting to talk, and leagues looking at scheduling and all of those different things. Because again, tell me if I'm wrong. One of the biggest factors of a league is you want to beat each other to death, but at the same time, you want each other to excel every other night that they're not playing you. Right. Because you, like I would even go as far to say ADs and coaches could work together in terms of, now all of a sudden, it's really, really important to say, Portsmouth, who Fairland is playing in the non-league.
Right.
It's very important to Zane Trace, who Piketon is playing in the non-league, because it's all going to impact one another. So I think it's a fascinating topic. It's new, therefore we're still trying to figure out opinions. That's where I kind of have some baseline thoughts. I'm trying to be open-minded on certain things, but I've learned through all of the realignment conversation that you sit a D7 coach down, a D5 coach down, and a D3 coach down, and you're going to have a hard time seeing everything through the same lens.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Now, we will have some RPI talk coming up in the next few weeks as we get closer to tournament time. Just kind of glancing through some of these really quick, but it's like you mentioned with the conference, you want your conference to do well. I'm going to just jump to Division 6 girls. Let's go to the Southeast. Like you have a Federal Hockey at number 1. You have Colgrove at number 2 at 11-4. That really factors in the fact they had to play Portsmouth and Fairland twice. So that's going to up your opponent's win percentage. And where those schools have gone out and up their non-conference schedule, their opponents' are even better. So that's going to bump some of those schools, even if you don't win.
They're going to fall out of bed and win 18, 19 games,
Right.
and then you're saying they're playing teams that are probably going to do the same.
Exactly. So then, so if you're a Colgrove, you probably you're benefiting from that in your RPI.
Yeah.
So then you can be creative in your non-conference as well. Add in some wins. Your wins are going to help you out even more because your win percentage is going to go up. So it's going to ultimately be
I'm glad you said
beneficial.
that, because I wasn't saying just go play cupcake past maybe the building of your foundation of your program, but the point is that you also have to have winnable games. Like the difference in football, you don't get credit for playing anyone. So like, unless I'm some big time powerhouse and Ironton calls up and says, "Hey, would you like to play football this year?" Hey, no thanks.
Right. Yeah.
Best of luck. No, I don't want to play it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things where you have to have a feel for your program. That's a great example, that Colgrove.
Well, and then I'll go down a little bit further. The 7 right now is Belpre. They're 5-13. They're in front of a team over 500 and then another team that's at 500. But because they've played Fort Fry, Sheridan, Fed Hawk, even Trimble, who's not having a great year, just as beneficial to them. Eastern Meigs, their conference is very good. So their conference being very good, they play in Alexander, they play Marietta, Waterford. Like, you're playing all these teams, that's going to make your strength of schedule.
So give me your opinion on that, and I'd love to hear our viewers' opinion. I was saying earlier, I don't like the number being so even.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that's the result of these numbers becoming even rather than going a little bit more the way. What's your thought on that? Like, are you okay with getting that much credit for just playing them, no matter if you get beat by 40?
Well, that's what I was just kind of looking at, because their win percentage is, I'm not very good at math, is half of what the team right below theirs is. And I feel like winning should still matter. So I would like to see it, even if it's 45-35 or 50-30. I do think
Something.
Yeah, I do think 40-40.
50-40-10 might be at least a little bit better, because I even said 60-30-10. 50-40-10 would at least be a solid number.
Yeah, so I do think that you should have to win games. That should still be impactful, but at the same time, you don't want to, like with a Colgrove, you don't want to say, where you go, you're winning these games, but you're not beating Portsmouth Fairland, so you don't get credit for that.
Right.
I do think there still has to be some, even it out a little bit, as you said, and I do think that is something that can be done. For the most part, if you go through these other ones, I'm going to jump to the boys' side. We'll just go Division 5. In the Southeast, I think we've got, we have an 8-8, well, 9-9 now. Piketon is at the 10, where Nelsonville York is 9-6, is at the 12. So I do think that, win percentage isn't that far off on that. But where Piketon has played a tougher schedule, I do think that's where I do think
Piketon's going to get credit for some Zane Trace, Unioto. They're going to get. They beat Wellston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They beat Wellston.
So
Huntington's what now 11, and I think they lost last night 5. Yeah. Is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean their schedule's probably now at the bottom of the side of Valley Conference, they may be going to hurt the other way a little bit, but maybe that evens out a little bit. But go, if you don't care, take the time, go ahead and read down division. I think Division 5 is fascinating in the Southeast boys.
At what part?
Just rattle off top 10 teams.
Right now, Chesapeake 1, Ironton 2, Wheelersburg 3, Eastern Brown 4. A lot of these don't have last night's results in as well. So Zane Trace 5, Portsmouth 6. Now the top 4 are pretty well separated. So Portsmouth 6, Wellston 7, Fairland 8, Northwest 9, Piketon 10.
Yeah, that's insane. So what's going to happen there? No matter if you use a math problem or the old way, the top 7, 8 are so good that someone's going to be a 6 seed, and now you're going to be like, wow, they're good. You know what I mean? So again, I don't know how you do it, but it really is fascinating to break the numbers down, because if you change the percentage and all of a sudden you change your spot on the bracket by 2 or 3 seeds, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I would like to see, as of now, Northwest and Fairland would be an 8-9 game just for the pure difference in how those teams play. Would be a really fun matchup as well. So I mean, you've got. I was just pulling up Waverly. Their win from last night is in there, so that's going to ultimately help them as well. But yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. And I'll go ahead and tell you the 12 seed on the Division 4 side, you probably don't want to play them. Just Westfall, because they've lost some big leads, but man, they can. I mean, it depends on the night, but they're a team that. You can't be super excited to see in front of you. So if you have any thoughts, opinions, or anything on those, reach out, let us know. We'll talk about RPI more as we go on as well. So
because the key is to find bigger schools that are pretty good but not as good as you.
Yes.
I mean, basically it's like the Big Ten school, find the MAC Bowl eligible team that you're going to beat in football. It's kind of that in basketball. You're trying to look for schools that are bigger than you, that are going to have a good record, but you're better than them, and most nights you're going to beat them. Now, easier said than done, but that's what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah, so it should be really interesting to see how that evolves throughout the years as well, because you still, as you said, if Ironton calls you and says, hey, you want to play football?
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, like that could be like there's a lot of times in the history of Wheelersburg basketball calling you and you're like, I don't know.
Well, they always give you hey, coach, I see you're really having a nice team. We think it'd be a good game or whatever. Would you want to do a 2-year contract? No. But if you get the wrong AD, that sounds a lot of fun. Yeah. Let's do that. That'd be a nice game.
Yeah. So just remember, you can reach out on our socials that are typically what we're tagged in and everywhere. So, this weekend got a lot of weather coming and everything. So we'll just mention it again. Remember the SOSA dugout. You can check out in Chillicothe. I believe it will be closed on Sunday. So even though we're doing this on Monday, we're putting this out on Monday. So ignore what I just said. So if you watch the Hainsdale Healthcare Coaches Call-In show from last week, you will see the Jackson boys were in here, and a lot of them went in and hit. Coach Morrow also talked about it a little bit, and just ask them what they thought of the dugout, and I think you'll know why you should probably come up.
That was a great show. Those young men were really impressive to just listen to them talk.
Yep, 100% agree. So let's jump over to boys basketball. We'll talk about a little bit of Jackson right now. They had a couple of big games this week. We didn't have we don't have a ton where we're going to talk about games this week. We're going to talk about some standings. We're trying to keep it kind of short so we can both get home safely before all of this comes as well. But it's for Jackson this week, they had 2 really tough games. First, they started off with a game at Washington. The Blue Lions were 8 for 11 from three-point range in the first half. Jackson gets down, but is able to storm back and get the win, partially because Bodie Wolford and Charlie Woodard were outstanding, both with over 20 points in the game.
That's just remarkable. I mean, when you talk about signs of an incredible team, when you get hit by a shooting spurt like that. And we're talking about a really good team,
Yes.
like on the other side. So it's not like just some team came and shot it way over their head or whatever. You're talking about a really good team who's capable of doing that. It just goes back to some characteristics I've talked about Jackson before. Their maturity, there's no panic. They stayed the course. When you have that type of experience, John, you've been through so many different scenarios. So that can really stagger you a little bit, but obviously they stayed the course and come back. That's a remarkable a show of maturity there.
Yeah, just an outstanding win there, and as you said, that's a really good Washington team as well.
Yes.
So it's a team that is going to be a big time threat throughout Division 4. And then also that's a team, that's already beat Miami Trace. And then we saw on Friday night in Jackson what that Miami Trace team can do. Man, did Washington Courthouse and Circleville ever wake up just an absolute sleeping giant in Miami Trace?
Well, I was listening to the interview. Let's see, it was after that win. It would have been after the Jackson win, and there was no arrogance about it. It was just you could tell that they were very humble. But you could tell that they were humbled. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where I think they even said, we hadn't lost a game in like 2 years or whatever. So it was one of those things where sometimes you have to get exposed just to take a look at how you prepare, how do you practice, and I think those leaders talked about that really well, and you see it in their play. I mean, you talk about maybe they were starting to tighten up with the win streak and all that stuff. All of a sudden now you lose a couple and you start to look yourself in the mirror, and when you go to the practice floor, you go to the film, they're getting a little bit more depth. They're really, really good, and they're certainly sending a message to the Southeast District that the top dog might just as well still be the top dog.
Yep. And then let's jump to what I think people would say was an upset because of kind of what happened the first time. Also on Friday night, Waverly with a pretty not easy win over Wheelersburg, but pretty comfortable win over Wheelersburg.
Waverly's a team, and I feel like you know Waverly even better than I do, so correct me here or add to me or whatever. Here's my take on Waverly. Waverly's a really good basketball team, led by a terrific scorer, that how they play through the course of 32 minutes really, really matters. You and I have had some teams on stream this year where we find ourselves talking a lot about tempo, and if this type of game breaks out, good. If this type of game breaks out, they're terrible. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is when Waverly's able to play out in front and they're able to play at their tempo and they're able to pick and choose when are we going fast, when are we going slow, we're gonna dictate tempo with some changing defense. They're fine. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of what happened here. I think they got into a position where they were able to do that, and you can see that they could play at a really, really high level. And you're just talking about the computer points for RPI. Yeah. That's a big time win.
Yeah, and for Waverly, if they can get you into their style, they're gonna make it. It's going to be really tough to beat them because, man, they've got some really nice pieces, as you said. I know I mentioned it last week. I just really, because you know what you're getting out of Cage, Alexander. You just know it's going to be really good. It's
terrific player.
Yeah, you know what to expect if you're the opponent. But if the Myers twins keep playing as well as they are, and it seems like they maybe have gone to another level, that maybe Coach Jarrett's been able to unlock something in there a little bit, because I thought even in a 20-point loss to Miami Trace, as crazy as this sounds,
you mentioned this.
Yeah, like they looked really good. They looked confident. They looked like, hey, we're playing against the best big that we're playing all year. They didn't back down and really competed hard. I think they combined for like 16 and 12 in that game. Mm-hmm. If you get 16 and 12 out of your front court every night, you're going to win a lot of games. You're at least going to be in a lot of games. Yeah. And then if you get a Russell, a Cassie, McBride, if you get those guys knocking down some shots from the outside, this Waverly team is very dangerous.
Well, and the other thing it does, to the point you're making, is when those guys start to do that, Waverly becomes capable of playing in more types of games. So if you think of the answer I had first given, I think you're spot on. I think the more their depth continues to grow in terms of scoring the basketball, Now all of a sudden you don't have to play a 40-39 game to win. Now all of a sudden you can play into the 50s, maybe even into the low 60s on occasional nights, and that's really valuable.
Yeah, then we had some kind of crazy games on Friday night. One of them was maybe not a crazy game when you look at just overall score, but Fayetteville 28-26 over Eastern Brown. Huge win in a Brown County rivalry game, and now that's going to keep Fayetteville, who got absolutely drilled by Fairfield earlier in the week, maybe that refocused them because they're able to come back and beat Eastern Brown at Eastern Brown, just a huge win.
Yeah, listen, I think we've said all year long, I think the top of that shack is really, really good. I think those are some basketball teams that are going to be really tough outs come the second season, and so I don't know that anything just surprises me, but I think people have listened to our show and watched our show know how I feel about the Eastern Brown group this year. So that's a big time win, and what better time of year than right here in this last third, the home stretch to start playing some of your best basketball, and I think Fayetteville's been able to kind of turn a corner and stay with it.
Yeah, Fayetteville now 12-3 on the season. Eastern drops to 13-2, so I think they'll be okay. But also, you need things like that where they beat they beat Fayetteville by 16 in the Brown Holiday Tournament. So I mean, it was a way. Maybe it's gonna refocus them. They've got probably a 2-game week because it's at Batavia on Tuesday, but then you got at West Union and then at South Webster on Saturday. So not the easiest week coming up for them. And then, you got Ripley, Cincinnati Country Day, at Waverly. We'll have that one on live stream. And then you finish the year at home against North Adams. They're on the road the rest of the season until that North Adams game.
Wow. Well, and again, it's hard to go 22-0, right? That's why not very many teams do it. You're going to come across adversity. You're going to come across injury, sickness. You don't shoot it well one night. The other team shoots it over their head. There's all sorts of factors that go into a 22-game season, and that's why you have to be able to win a lot of different ways. And it sounds like that particular game got into a little bit. We just talked about it with Waverly Wheelersburg, right? Mm-hmm. That game got into Fayetteville's advantage a little bit. And they got a way to get it done.
Yep. And then down at Eastern Meigs, Trimble and Eastern Meigs were tied at 61. Sam Balk gets a steal and gets fouled with a tenth of a second left. Misses the first, and then to his credit, steps up, hits the second one to win the game for Eastern. They're a team that they haven't had a whole lot of wins on the season, but how much can a last-second win in that way, where you get the defensive stop you need, how much can that kind of turn your season a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of times we talk in these types of questions, and they're sports cliche, but I always say they become cliche because they've happened over and over and over. I agree with you, John. I think when you win a game like that, it gives you an unbelievable confidence that if you get in a tight game, maybe not the same exact situation, it could be a free throw for that young man later in the year or whatever, but if you get in that same situation, you have a feeling of like, we're going to win. We're going to find a way to win. And then on the opposite side of that is if you lose too many of those, I know you've been there and coaching with kids and you're trying to beg high school kids not to go there, but like something bad happens down the stretch and it's, here we go again. You know what I mean? Because like we've seen some really good basketball teams. Well, you mentioned Westfall earlier. I think Westfall boys are a really good basketball team. I know their record's just not very good this year. I think they're good. You don't go up 20-2 on Huntington if you're not good. You don't go up 20 on the road in other times. Now, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to finish. But I think a lot of that is, it's just like I watched them again last night. They're up, not nearly as much, but they're up in the second half of that game by 2 possessions. Then they're up still into the fourth quarter. But I do think there's a little bit of like, oh, no, here we go again type of things. And that's hard to overcome.
Yeah, and you kind of saw that on Tuesday with them as well in a game that
had Unioto by the throat.
Yeah, just super competitive in it, and then all of a sudden
they outplayed Unioto in many areas for the first 3 quarters of that basketball game.
And then Jackson Zickerfoos gets a couple of baskets, and all of a sudden it just looked like and that's where Unioto is able to get that win. So pretty wild night on Friday. I think that may have been the ones that I was really looking at. as far as that goes. Sims Valley with a 1-point win over Western, Northwest with a big win over Eastern Pike. That was a big time game for them. Valley beats West. Minford gets their first league win. They beat South Webster. And then also Jack Howland for Hillsboro in a losing effort. They lose 54-50 against Chillicothe. He had 33 in that game. So Jack Howland continues to be one of the top players in our coverage area.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I had in my notes from the Side of Valley Conference, and I'm sure there's examples of this all over Southeast if we do a little digging, but I was looking at the SVC standings. Adena 4-20 a year ago. Last night's win makes them 9-7. Huntington 8-15 a year ago. Even with last night's loss, they're 11-5. Piketon 5-18. They're 9-9. So teams can go up and down year to year. Sometimes they have to reload, rebuild, and that goes back to our talk at the very beginning of the show about how sometimes there's no controlling that. But if you do your scheduling 2 years at a time, that's a great illustration of what I'm talking about in terms of that RPI ranking.
Yeah, and then let's just go back. Fairfield Union got a good win at Meigs earlier in the week.
It's all that.
Circleville had a good win at Sheridan earlier in the week as well.
Circleville's good basketball.
Yeah, that's a really big Division IV.
Circleville's a really. If you haven't had a chance to see Circleville, go back and watch our Circleville Miami Trace stream while you're snowed in. Circleville's really good.
Yeah, Circleville is an outstanding team. So it's there's a really good week of basketball. There still may be some games on Saturday. We'll see some results. I would guess if there were, they're going to be early, which I guess could be finishing up around this time. But as always, we want to go as in depth as possible on a lot of these things. And this week maybe not as much, just because there's not as much. So let's jump over to some standout performances. First, we've done it to where it's pretty much coaching accomplishments, maybe some big time games. We talked Jack Howland a bunch on here of the 33-point game and everything. Let's jump to some 1,000-point scores. First, let's start with Manchester's Parker Haislop. Parker Haislop has been one of the more dynamic players in the Southeast District for the last couple of seasons. He scores his 1,000th point for the Greyhounds, and just overall throughout his career has just been absolutely dynamic. Maybe they're not always having the most wins. They got to a district final last year as a lower seed, and a lot of that was because of Haislop. He's averaging 20.5 points a game this year.
Yeah, it's just terrific. And again, in the small school setting, when you have great young players that you can build around, and then they grow into these 1,000-point scores. It just gives your program some stability, and it kind of makes the game easier for people to play around them. That young man's a terrific athlete, and I don't care where you're doing it at in terms of some of the conference, some of the schedule he's playing against. To put up that type of total night in, night out also shows you a level of consistency.
Yeah, so he's made 43 threes on the season. This is not having Friday night stats, but 43 made threes on the season, shooting 82% from the free throw line. As I mentioned, 20.5 points a game. He's also averaging 5 rebounds. He's listed at 5'10". I was also listed at 5'11", so keep that in mind. So listed at 5'10", 20.5 points, 5.1 rebounds, 4.7 assists, with a game high of 8 assists in a game earlier this year, 3.4 steals, and he also adds nearly a block a game as well. Just a great athlete that's really done really well for Manchester.
Yeah, well, I had a chance to watch him play a couple times on some stream, and just plays hard, plays the game the right way. I really like his game, and again, just a nice stability piece. As you said, it doesn't surprise me to see them make that type of run last year, because when you're led by that type of kid, day in, day out, he's bringing a consistency that's going to help your team get better.
Yeah, right now they are 7-12, but don't be surprised if they make another run, because when
they're in that dangerous area.
Yeah, you get a player like a Haislop that can really turn a game at any time. And let me see where they are at in the RPI. That way we can jump on that a little bit. They are 7th right now in Division 7. I mean, really, I think if you're in that range, a winnable first game, and then it would be tough playing like a Southern in that district semifinal game. But
again, you're into more of the district level at that point. So again, I know we don't want to use the term sectional championship for whatever reason anymore, but they certainly have a chance to do that. See, I'm not going to go there yet. We'll save that for later in the year, but
So let's jump to our next 1,000-point score. This was actually one that we had an idea was last week, and then when we didn't really hear much about it, we weren't really able to talk about it. Was Westfall's Joe Wray actually did it at Huntington a week ago, so he's steadily moving up the SVC scoring list. I know he's getting close to 1,000 career points at Westfall, which Westfall's only had, I think, 4,000-point scores in their history. He did his freshman year at Circleville, had some big-time games there, but then comes over to Westfall, and since then it's just been outstanding for the Mustangs.
Yeah, he's a really good player. If you have a chance to see him play, he's a tough matchup. He kind of, lulls you to sleep a little bit. He has good low dribble. He has a nice stop and go mid range. He's a creative shot maker. Shoots the three. I think he's most dynamic in the mid range, and then he's really a kid that puts a lot of pressure on the official because he's so clever with his body that when the defender gets out of position, he creates some contact and so forth. He's also a kid that, tell me if you agree, John, unless I'm missing someone in the last couple of years there, he's never really played with what I would call a true point guard. So he's been required not only to score the basketball, but to also take on so much of the ball handling duties. Does play with a terrific player, helping
Craig.
the lefty, really good player. But Ray's a nice player that is asked to do a lot for that team and has had a nice career.
Yeah, very nice career for sure. He's averaging 17.5 points a game this season. And just overall, over the last couple of years, as you mentioned, kind of lulls you to sleep a little bit when you're trying to defend him. And then he's so smart that he can find those little spots to attack. And then when he does, he's very tough to defend because you're probably going to foul him and then he's going to get to the line. And he's shot it better in the past at the line, but I know the Unioto game he shot the ball well at the line there. And just once he gets that kind of lined back up, well, he's starting to get a little more consistent from the outside. Man, that's going to be a tough matchup, and that's one of the reasons why we both like that Westfall team. And you wouldn't love to see them in the tournament, especially if your kids kind of just look at the record.
Yeah, record aside, if that young man sees a three ball go down early in the game, you could be in for a long night if his confidence starts to go because he starts making the perimeter shot. He becomes a really tough guard.
Yeah, and then mix him in with Brian Craig, Ethan Rose. They've got some nice pieces over at Westfall that could make somebody's life pretty uncomfortable in that first round and maybe beyond if they get hot. So let's jump to our last 1,000-point scorer of the week. This one from Wellston. You've got Wes Briggs, who did it in just an incredibly impactful way as he scores 39 points in a win over Bern Union, a battle of the Rockets, and he's able to soar above Bern Union and ultimately only a junior already to 1,000 points.
Yeah, I don't know how many weeks ago it's been now when you had Wellston's coach on. It was a really good interview. Yeah. If you haven't had a chance to see that, you can look back at the timestamps. He was talking about the growth of his team and how he had given so much credit to the leaders of his team in terms of the way they've set an expectation of how you practice, how you warm up, how you conduct yourself in the locker room, how you conduct yourself on the bench, how you play hard. And that's what's exciting when you see this. I've had a chance to see Wellston play 3 times this year, and they're skilled. They're still a team that I think maximizes a lot. You turn the film on, they're talented, but it's not like you're just like blown away that they're just going to fall out of bed and just beat everybody they play. But they're a really good team. But what impresses you, starting with Briggs, is how they just play the game the right way. And I think that has a lot to do with what Coach is talking about in terms of you need your older players to set an expectation and standard, and then the younger guys follow. And then before you know it, that becomes the culture of your program even after those guys are gone.
Yeah, it's changing the culture of Wellston to get kind of back to what they were. And it sounds like those senior leaders are doing a great job of it. And then you've got just a huge scorer in Wes Briggs that, as a junior, is helping lead that Wellston turnaround as well, as they are now at 11 wins after a good win at Athens last night.
And I think to your point is exactly what I'm saying about what Coach said. Don't you feel like the seniors have played, according to Coach, the seniors have played a role in a young man being able to do that?
Yes, that's what it sounds like. They only won 10 games combined in the last 2 seasons, and they've already won 11 this season. So that's
good team.
Yeah, that's what you need to turn things around. And it sounds like Coach Briggs, those seniors, and Wes Briggs are doing a really good job of turning things around for Wellston. They need to go get a ski pop to celebrate the achievement. So if we missed any achievements, anything to anything to celebrate, let us know. We're probably going to have to fill some time next week in this spot because of just kind of overall how this weekend is going. And remember, in case you get out there and tires lock up or you slide, Perfection One. You know, they have places in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross County. Meet them by accident. You'll find out why they are highly recommended. They are our lead sponsor here. We do every one of our shows from the Chillicothe Sports Card Studios. And, you know, just overall, we appreciate their sponsorship. So we did this last week on the girls' side. We jumped into the conference standings. And let's go on the boys' side. Now, last week on the girls' side, we also did some like games to watch throughout the week. Well, we can't guarantee what games are going to get played. So we're just going to really go through this kind of quickly. Maybe next week we may go into a little more detail on some games to watch. But we can say a couple thoughts about each league or, you know, these top teams as well. So let's jump to the FAC. Right now with 3 games to play, Miami Trace sits at 7-0 at the top of the FAC. They beat Jackson twice. They beat Chillicothe and Washington Courthouse once each in conference play. Obviously, Washington Courthouse got them in non-conference. But really, the only team that has a chance to maybe get a share is Chillicothe because everyone else has 3 or more losses. So just one more win for Miami Trace, and they will get a share.
Yeah, Miami Trace, obviously, the loss coming in the quote-unquote non-league game against Courthouse was a big factor in the FAC race because you knew coming in that Miami Trace wasn't going to lose a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that when they do lose, for it not to be a league game, obviously is a factor. But no, that FAC at the top is just completely loaded. I mean loaded. It's just an absolute grind. And you think about how talented Jackson and Chillicothe are, and as you said, we're one game away from no one else even sniffing the FAC title. I think it just shows you just how incredible the run that Miami Trace has been on over the last couple of years during Guthrie's career of leading a very talented group.
Well, I know we just had a SOSA soundbite, literally just went out like 20 minutes ago from Adam Guthrie. I think it was.
Well, that was what I was talking about earlier. He was, who was he with? I think it was the point guard.
Bowers.
Bowers, really good.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, but basically what they were saying, if I'm paraphrasing, they were talking about how it just kind of humbled them to go through that, and they hadn't dealt with losing, and they had to really look themselves in the mirror and kind of get better, and they've done that. And you can hear the very humble confidence now that they have moving forward. Hey, if we do this, this, and this, you know, we're going to have a great chance to win. Yeah. And I think that's just kind of refocused them, and that's kind of a dangerous thing.
Yeah, you mentioned those two. Then you've got Huffman, who's playing really well. Phipps, another sophomore, along with Huffman and Bowers. they're going to be really good for at least the next couple of years as well. And then you mix in the leadership of Guthrie. If you didn't hear Coach Ackley on the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show last week, check out the timestamps. Listen to him talk about Guthrie.
What an incredible young man.
Yeah, and it's just listening to the fact that he could play and pretty much he comes from his spring game down at Clemson. It was just like, all right, Coach, when are we getting started?
Yeah.
And it was just like, and to me that says, I know he was in the news this week for kind of calling out another coach, but Coach Sweeney from Clemson, that says a lot about him to want those kids to come in and do the multi-sports.
Well, but it goes back to adapting. There's a college coach that's really, really good that I think it's a safe assumption that he's having trouble adapting. And right or wrong, that's not what this podcast show's about. I think you're right in terms of just about character and so forth. Let me throw this in on this game, too. Cox at Chillicothe has been terrific. Yep. His ability now in an environment at Unioto and at Jackson to kind of take over spurts of a game, I think is really just that next stage of growth. I'd watched it last year as a sophomore. I mentioned his performance down at Warren, some different things throughout. If he continues to push forward, you have the leadership of a Stone King, like Chillicothe, maybe too big a hole to climb out of in the FAC. Maybe not if they can get this win here. But again, a team into the tournament that's just going to be a crazy difficult out when they get into whatever their matchup is in the bracket.
Yeah, and that's that Division III. Wait till we talk about that one probably next week. Because that RPI is insane. Because right now it sits Miami Trace, Jackson, Marietta, then Chillicothe. If you got Chillicothe as the fourth, and that means they're probably
how would you like to be? How would you like to be Miami Trace, no matter what happens in this upcoming game, and have to play them a third time?
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't really want to do that because that Chillicothe team, man, they are very talented. But man, this Miami Trace team is playing.
What's scary about the Miami Trace team is they're becoming way more explosive than they were a year ago. A year ago, you felt like, hey, we can at least get them in a close game and see what we can do in the fourth quarter. Now they're almost showing a different level they can go to where they can just blow you out.
Yeah, since their loss that we had on SOSA with Circleville, they've won by 24, 30, 19 over New Albany, 24, 11, there you go, Washington, 21 at Hillsboro, and then last night at Jackson, just another dominating win. So this
Well, you have that pulled up. What's Circleville's record now?
A lot in two. 12-2.
12-2. They're like I said, they're a really good basketball team.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see how the 3 and 4 brackets unfold, and then you rattled off the 5 earlier, and it is just as impressive with that depth.
Yeah, so it's an outstanding conference there in the FAC, and you mentioned how good it is at the top, but then you got a Jack Howland that can score 33 points, keep his team in the game.
Well, McClain won at Zane Trace.
Yeah,
Zane Trace is really good.
Yeah,
and McClain went to Zane Trace and won.
Yeah, which I think may have woken them up a little bit as well.
I think you might be right.
We will get into that a little bit more, but we talked about Circleville earlier. So MSL Buckeyes, Circleville, Fairfield Union, each are 5-1, and then don't look now, Bloom Carroll's sitting there at 4-2, where I think their demise was announced way too early just based off of how good that Chillicothe team, because Bloom Carroll, after that first game where they did not look good at all, Chillicothe's done it to a lot of teams.
Well, if you go back on SOSA and watch that game, we talked in detail on that particular night about how Bloom Carroll playing this many young kids, now's the time to get them. Don't be surprised come January if they're in a different spot. And I think that just is a great indication of what we're talking about and the culture of that program. But Circleville, Fairfield Junior, talking about 2 really, really good teams, battle-tested teams. And that's going to make for an exciting final month here in the MSL.
Yeah, definitely going to be exciting. We do have, or will have, a matchup with Fairfield Union at Circleville February 17th. So you got a while coming up on just under a month. But we're going to be there streaming that one as well.
Nice.
Could be for a conference championship on that night. Should be a lot of fun up in Round Town. So keep an eye out on that league. Let's jump to the OVC, another league with some really good depth, but Ironton, Chesapeake, both sitting at 8-1. Chesapeake has to be really thankful for Portsmouth because now they still get a chance to maybe win that league outright.
I love the Chesapeake team. If you've listened to us the last couple weeks, we've gone on and on with their versatility with, Kazee and Thacker and Perkins and Prescott and company. They're just really, really good. But you're right. Ironton I've not seen in person. I've watched them on stream twice. Man, they just passed the eye test. They're so strong. They're so physical. They're one of the few teams I've seen probably in the lower divisions at least that could match up the physicality and athleticism with Chesapeake. So I think what happens when those two get together in the one-on-one matchup is execution becomes a little bit more of a premium because don't you agree that both of those teams night in, night out, they'll just kind of out-athlete you.
Yeah.
Where when the two collide, now it comes down to a little bit more of a game of execution and may the best team win.
Yep, and may the best team win on Friday at Chesapeake. Ironton at Chesapeake on Friday.
Wow.
Should be just an
That'd be all kinds of fun.
Yeah, all unreal atmosphere. Should be a great contest down there at Chesapeake, and hopefully we can get someone down there to at least cover that game because we've got another big one that we'll talk about in just a minute. But don't sleep on Gaia right now. Gaia with a nice win over Fairland on Friday night as well. They are getting healthy.
Well, we talked about that too. I know when I was down there, a chance to see it, I didn't get a chance to see the one young man play, and you said he's back now. So, I could see where there's a lot of growth there. I was very impressed with their team that night.
Yeah, and they are going to be maybe not the favorites next year. I think it still might be Ironton because when you have Ashton Lane coming back,
nice place to start.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. But man, that Gaia team is going to be very good in the OVC next year. And then of course, Chesapeake. If you ask Coach Ader, it's like, we lose a lot. He's right, but you still have Max Kazee and
he's not bad.
Yeah, and you've got like a Chapman and. Some other pieces coming back as well. So, don't sleep on Chesapeake as well coming up.
And they kind of like basketball down there, so I'm sure there's a few younger kids that like at least go out on the driveway every now and then and shoot around.
Probably will make a nice little jump in talent to be able to play with Kazee for a year. And I think he can make his teammates a little bit better as well. So, but keep an eye out on Gaia the rest of this year and then obviously into next year as well. But then you have the SVC, got a big one on Friday night there. Unioto at 12-0, Zane Trace at 10-1. A win for Unioto on Friday will win them the outright SVC. A loss, and Zane Trace will have a chance to earn a share, even though they still have to make up one more game.
Yeah, these two teams have completely separated themselves from the rest of the league on the defensive end. There's just been times they've overwhelmed their opponent defensively, and they've put up some impressive totals. Zane Trace survived a scare at Adena. Unioto just survived a scare at Westfall. Yep. Other than that, most nights, I'm not saying there hasn't been some competitive second, third quarters, but most nights these two teams have separated themselves, and they're a little bit similar in terms of they had some experience back. They needed to blend in. So I think it's safe to say that both teams are way better than they were the first time they played, and that was a terrific game. I don't think anyone questions what the atmosphere will be like on a Friday night there at Unioto. But there's some really interesting matchups. There's some things that both teams can do to hurt the other. I thought Barry was really, really good in the first round of this game. Unioto's pressures really started to wear on guards over the course of 32 minutes. He's probably one of the ones that's handled it the best and come up with some plays in the second half. I think over on the other side, I think Blake Fitch is playing his best basketball of the season. He was outstanding last night at Huntington, but he's been on about a 4 or 5 game stretch where he's passing the ball at a really high level. He's shooting it. He's playing efficient. And then what he doesn't get enough credit for, he's a top 5 defender in the league as well. So good, really good talent on both sides. Really good coaching. They'll be prepared. and it should be a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah, that on Friday night will be our Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week from Unioto. If you're going to be there, get there early because it's not the biggest place and it will sell out.
Remember, too, McCullough versatility caused Unioto some problems. Yep. Stewart played through some foul trouble in that game. But then a lot of first-year full-time varsity kids for Unioto playing in that Zane Trace environment. Remember how early in the year that was. Now there's a lot of growth there as well.
Yep. And then, it should just be a really fun matchup over there at Unioto. So you got two big games on Friday night in big-time league aspect there. Zane Trace at Unioto, which we'll have on live stream, and then Ironton at Chesapeake as well in the OVC. So let's jump to the Shack 1. Fayetteville did a really good job of, kind of finding their footing after really struggling on Tuesday. Fairfield kept themselves in the race with a win over Fayetteville, but still 2 games might be tough to make up in that aspect. Fayetteville sitting 8-1, Peebles 9-2, Fairfield 6-3. I know Peebles and Fayetteville still need to play a second time.
Tell me if you agree with this. I think what Fairfield has done says a lot about their guard play, a lot about their coaching, because they're not nearly as deep as Eastern Brown, Fayetteville,
right.
Peebles, yet they're kind of keeping their name in the conversation. And through the end of it, I don't know if they'll quite have enough to be there in the end, but I want to give them a tip of the cap because I think they have really maximized this group and they've played really well. But yeah, when you look at both sides of the Shack, the Fayetteville, Peebles, and Eastern Brown team, man, those are elite teams. I think back to the Eastern Brown Peebles game that you and Carson called. That was a great call, great game to watch. And then now what Fayetteville has been able to do, they got a nice deep team, and obviously they're extremely well coached as well. So, man, that's good basketball down there in the Shack.
Yeah, outstanding basketball for sure. And it just and that's a division that has Manchester in it as well. So you can see a Parker Haislop, shaking things up if it's a night where his teammates play really well along with him. So, and keep in mind they have those crossover games, so you could see another loss coming from somewhere where that is not factoring into those other pieces. But there's Peebles at Fairfield will be on Friday night as well. Friday's huge in the area. Like, we didn't even mention Chillicothe at Miami Trace is coming up on this Friday. So, I mean, it's let's hope those teams are able to get in and get some practice in because it's going to be an outstanding night of basketball in the area on Friday night. And then, when we get to another league, we'll talk about another big game coming up. But let's jump over to the Shack 2. Eastern Brown sits at 9-1. If they could have beat Fayetteville, this is how crazy of a season they've had. If they could have beat Fayetteville on Friday, the 28-26 loss that they had, they would have won their league, not got a share. They would have won it outright at that point. That would have got them their 10th win and could not have gotten more than 3 losses at that time. But they still, could technically tie with North Adams, who has 4 losses in the league.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise. That is a crazy stat. That doesn't surprise me, John, because again, I've been so high on Eastern Brown. They're so complete. Incredible point guard play, great perimeter play, good post play, obviously legendary coach, good basketball culture. They just check all the boxes, and you could just tell from the word go this year that they were kind of a step ahead there. Obviously come up on the wrong side of it the other night, but they just as easily a 3-ball there from against Peebles, and maybe they're on the wrong side of that scoreboard too.
Right.
You see 2 great teams play. A lot of times it does come down to the final possession or whatnot. But yeah, Eastern's really complete, and they'll be a dangerous team in the tournament, and then they'll be right back here next year because the majority of them are all coming back.
Yep, 100% there. So let's jump to the SOC. We'll start with the 1. Notre Dame is at 6-0, Green 5-1, Ironton St. Joe staying around at 4-2. Notre Dame's dealt with some adversity and really done a good job of getting through it. sitting at 6-0 in the league.
Well, and they kind of did the same in football, if you remember. You know, they kind of had some different things go on there. So you're right, and you know, Green's still there with a chance, and St. Joe. The one thing I'll say about the SOC as you rattle through the 1, 2, and 3 in the standings, pay attention to the depth of teams that have a chance, and then go back, if you haven't already, and listen to our opening discussion about scheduling and realignment of leagues. The SOC gets it, and that's why they have one of the most competitive environments in out of all the conferences we're talking about.
Yep, 100% agree with you on that. So Green and Notre Dame beats them in the closing seconds of the first contest. I believe they may close out the league season against one another. Let me just glance real quick. Right now, Notre Dame sitting at 11-3 is the 4 seed in Division 7. The rematch at Green will be on the 3rd, February 3rd. So that will be at Green, and that will most likely be for the league title. But as we said, Ironton St. Joe kind of hanging around and could make things pretty interesting over there. So moving to the SOC 2, a huge win for Northwest gives them a game advantage over Eastern Pike and Sims Valley. Northwest sitting at 5-1. Eastern Pike, Sims Valley, both are 4-2.
Northwest has been one of the probably more intriguing teams in our coverage area. At the beginning of the year, we weren't 100% sure what to think. We liked some pieces, but here they are. So credit to coaches, credit to kids to kind of continue to get better. I think speaking of getting better, Eastern Pike certainly falls into that.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed listening to their coach a couple times on the call-in show. But again, teams that are lurking, team like Sims Valley is just dangerous enough there to get involved.
Yeah, Sims Valley knocked off Northwest in double overtime a couple weeks ago, and has some really intriguing sophomores. They're a very young team, but being young can make it to where you're going to get better and better throughout the season, and that's why they're going to have a chance. They are sitting as the 8 seed right now, Northwest of the 9 in Division 5. Sims Valley, Eastern are in Division 6. Eastern right now the 6. I don't know if you want to play any of those teams in the tournament as well. So keep an eye out on the SOC 2, and then the SOC 3. You've got a huge game match coming up on Friday night, and it's not just for the top 2 teams, but I would say the 3rd and 4th teams who are going to keep an eye out on that game. You got Wheelersburg at 5-1. Valley is at 4-2. They will play on Friday night at Wheelersburg. If Valley can win that game, then you have 2 more teams that are still in the thick of it, because you've got Waverly and West each with 3 losses. I believe Waverly is only at 2-3. They still have to play Minford, and then West is at 3-3. That league is just bonkers because you had South Webster lose to Minford last night as well. We said that Minford would beat somebody.
You talked about, you mentioned that one. You mentioned Minford earlier in the year would be a factor in this before it was all said and done. And then the thing that we talked about when we had our weekend at Valley was Wheelersburg was going to be the X factor that was going to determine how this thing went. If they were able to, go undefeated through the first round or so, it was going to start to let everyone else beat up on each other. Now, all of a sudden, the Waverly win, it shakes the whole thing up, and you're right. Pressure back on the Berg now to stay separated from those other 3.
Yep, they were in pretty good shape, or really good shape, and then Waverly comes up and gets a double-digit win where they're just able to dribble out the last 30 seconds with just, players walking off the court, and you're like, oh, man, that's when you know it was a really decisive victory for the Tigers in Tigertown on Friday night. So let's jump to the TVC Hawkins. Southern sitting at 7-0. Seems like they have wrapped up their side.
Level.
Yeah. You've got,
because I'd watched a lot of film on them this week in preparation. Remember, we thought we were going to have them tonight, and from what I could tell, good teams in the Hawking, but that was another level.
Yeah, you've got some nice teams and like a Waterford, Trimble, Eastern,
absolutely.
Fed Hawk at times can shake things up a little bit as well. I mean, it's a league that has some really nice teams, as you mentioned, but this Southern team is really separated themselves. Brandiger is outstanding. You got a really good point guard as well, well-coached team, and the Tornadoes are for real. Then let's jump to the TVC Ohio, which still has some intrigue in there. Meigs sitting at 6-1, Wellston 6-2. Meigs does have 2 wins over Wellston on the year, so Wellston has to get some help. Benton County already beat Meigs once. Alexander, Athens, even River Valley, those Nelsonville, even you've got 7 teams in that league who all can get a little frisky at times, and if Meigs isn't on their game, could be upset.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The TVC Ohio, like as you go through a lot of these conferences, I feel like we've been right on a lot of them. The TVC Ohio, at the end of the day, we might be right in terms of Meigs, but I think where I've been wrong on the TVC Ohio, I think there's a little bit more depth there than I've given it credit for. I see certain scores night in, night out as they have league nights, and so I do think Meigs has to make sure that they don't let their guard down because, like some leagues, it's probably 1 or 2 teams are going to get you or no one else will. This is one of those leagues that on a given night, there may be 3, 4, 5 teams that could get you.
Yep, there we go. And there's just another really good league getting better throughout the year and year over year as well. So that's our conference standings. We'll go more in depth next week, a little bit more, probably more on the RPI next week than anything else. But let's, we're just going to go really quick on our games of the week this week. So we've got 2 streaming games. First one, Friday night. Zane Trace at Unioto, our Kingston National Bank SVC game of the week. Keep an eye out on that one. As you mentioned, Stuart McCullough, outstanding for Zane Trace. They've also got some outstanding athletes. Hudson Williams getting better throughout the year. Roman Berry, a really nice point guard. Then you mix in Stevens, Bryce Johnson, Kaiser. Hill has made some plays throughout the year as well. So keep an eye out on those players. Unioto seems like Blake Fitch playing his best basketball right now. I know he had a 10-assist game last week, a 9-assist game as well. So, I mean, he's doing a great job of passing, facilitating. He's closing in on Unioto's all-time assist record as well as being a 1,000-point scorer, and that just kind of says his all-around game. And then Jack Welch, Isaac Coy, Jackson Zickfu seems like he's really starting to get going. He's never one to worry about confidence, but when his shot starts to fall, they get to be really dangerous. I think Caden Patterson looks like he's starting to kind of get
knocked down a shot last night. It was a big shot for him. And then defensively,
Mitchell has been
really good. I think they had him on the radio last night for about 5 or 6 blocks. And then I'll tell you, an X factor down the stretch here could be the Harsha kid. Yeah. That kid athletically is different. I mean, he's I don't care what the grade column says, freshman. I mean, that kid can guard. Langhoff comes in and shoots it for him a little bit as well. But, yeah, the Harsha kid, if you haven't had a chance to see him, I really enjoyed the minutes last night watching him go against Frankie Hirsch, who we haven't talked to. I think he leads the SVC in scoring on your update, correct?
Yeah.
That was a great matchup. Obviously, Frankie had his normal night,
right?
But just watching the 2 athletes go at each other a little bit last night was a lot of fun.
And then keep an eye on David Long. Had a really big game in that first one.
Very important.
Yeah. Now, doing so, I'm not sure. I don't think he scored. I don't even know if he took a shot in the game, but was able to really help them defensively, and that was the biggest place where he's going to impact a game. So.
Well, there's so much you're going to do against the player, the talent of McCullough. All you're trying to do is for the minutes that the coach calls on, you just try to go in and make him earn it. And I think, Long did that.
Yes, 100% agree with that. Then you have also Friday night, as we mentioned, Ironton at Chesapeake. You got Ashton Lane and, Bryson Mullins. The Fighting Tigers were able to beat Chesapeake early, and I think that's what opened everybody's eyes to how good this Ironton team is. And then you just have to really remember, well, that's Chesapeake's only loss because Chesapeake, kind of like Miami Trace in a way, really woke up after that game.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. I said when I watched Chesapeake, I felt they were Final Four good.
Yes.
And then so you're telling me Ironton did that early in the year too, and that tells you all you need to know about Ironton.
Yep. 2 of the better teams in Division 5. Clashing with a chance to separate themselves in the OVC, and you can't say that it would be to really earn anything yet in the OVC because you still got Fairland, Gallia, Portsmouth, who we haven't even mentioned. Portsmouth beat Ironton as well. So Maddox Kazee, Caden Perkins, Carson Frecka, Philip Thacker, some of the players for John Cooper Barker as well for that
Chesapeake.
Chesapeake.
About him earlier when I was rattling off names. He's outstanding for him.
Yeah, so they've got some really nice pieces and then really nice pieces for Ironton as well. That should be an outstanding atmosphere on the Fearson Court down there. Keep an eye out on that game. Then in the FAC, you got Chillicothe at Miami Trace. A win for Miami Trace locks up the league for a second straight year for them. And most likely, well, I won't say that because they already lost to Washington once. So, but gives them a leg up. It would wrap them up a piece of the league. But a loss, if Caden Cox and company
Could get interesting.
Yeah, could make things interesting, especially with that Washington Courthouse game hovering there to finish the regular season in the FAC. But of course, Chillicothe still, has an easy one with Jackson. So, but keep an eye on Caden Cox, Gabe Bowers, two of the better, really all-around players in the area. I don't care what the ages are. I would say Gabe Bowers has to be up there and maybe one of the top sophomores in the area, if not the top sophomore.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And then you've got Caden Cox, who, along with like a Maddox Kazee, some of the other pieces, some really good juniors in the area as well. So should be a really fun matchup. Noah Nutter going to have his hands full in that game. If Andrew Hammond can keep shooting it well, Cooper Stone King, and make that Miami Trace zone kind of vulnerable, make it a little easier to find some cuts in there and everything, could make that game really fun to watch. But I think that'll be one to keep an eye out on for sure. And then we jump over to the SOC3, and we weren't even going to talk.
I can't get over this Friday night lineup.
Yeah, well, we weren't even going to really go into it, and then I just started clicking through our stuff. I'm like, oh, look at all these games. So you got Lucasville Valley at Wheelersburg. A win for Wheelersburg would give them a 2-game lead over everyone else in the SOC3, but a win for Valley, and it makes things really interesting in the SOC3.
It does, and Friday night's one of those nights where you're going to go to your favorite game, but that's where you got to come home and make sure over the weekend you watch some other streams. We'll have the Zane Trace Unioto game, but throughout wherever you can get some streams or whatever, because as a basketball fan, you just owe it to yourself to try to watch as many of these as you can.
Yeah, it should be just an awesome night of basketball because this Valley team. We've seen them at a high and at a little bit of a low, but man, when they're at their high, they can really play. They can really score the basketball if they can get you into their tempo. But I think their tempo is something that Wheelersburg also likes to play, which is why I think this is going to be one of those really big must-watch games in the area. So, and then we do have another live stream on Saturday. We've got Jackson at Waverly. We're getting both teams for the first time from the downtown gymnasium in Waverly. Should be a great matchup there as well. Both teams were, I guess Jackson, you could say, is kind of reeling a little bit, as much as that team probably could. Waverly was reeling a little bit, but man, they really made a statement on Friday night. Really good guard play in this one. I think the Myers twins are going to be a really big impact in this game because of their size. And I don't know if Jackson has that size. And remember, last year, Waverly knocked off Jackson when I think Jackson felt like they had their best chance ever to win a district championship. And so they've got some revenge on their mind at that one.
I was looking as you were talking there because I was wondering, a lot of times you see these Saturday night games, you always wonder what's on Friday night. It looks like Jackson will have McClain. If I go over to the Waverly side here, and I go down to the 30 South Webster. So again, some good tests there on both sides. But again, as I said earlier in the show, I'm old. I think a lot's made of the Friday Saturday thing. I think a lot of it is kids don't have as much experience. I think we ran into that a little bit with the Valley Chesapeake game. We highlighted that on last week's show. Kids don't have a lot of experience doing it or responding. And I thought you could really tell Chesapeake didn't play on a Friday night, a little bit more wound up and ready to go, where Valley, coming off a really emotional win, a lot of different things going on, a little different facility, and not the same atmosphere. So Now, that Saturday night atmosphere, I don't think will have a problem being just as good, but don't underestimate both teams going through a league test the night before.
Yeah, the good thing for both teams in that is they're both at home the night before.
Yes.
So you don't have to travel, but there's still a lot of extra things that go on, especially with this week, because who knows how much they're going to be able to get in the gym and everything before then. So that's going to do it. So remember, our streaming games for this week are Unioto hosting Zane Trace on Friday, Kingston National Bank SVC Game of the Week, and then Saturday will be Jackson at Waverly as well. So
hard to complain about that. Those are 4 really good teams.
Yeah, and while you sit at home this week, make sure you go back and watch some of our really good streams that we've had. You can watch some of the games that weren't that good as well. So, I mean, those kids deserve it as well, the teams that have played that we've been able to stream so far this year. So check that out. There's going to be a big slate of games, and there's going to be some reschedules. So keep an eye out on all of those things. Tuesday, it'd be great if we just skip Tuesday and then all of a sudden we don't get what they're telling us we're going to get, and then everyone plays on Tuesday. So that would be outstanding if that was possible. So remember, we're sponsored by Perfection One. We're here in the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio. So let's jump over. Talking about Perfection One, we're going to talk about that coming up here in our first game that we're going to talk about on the girls basketball side, because we had some big time collisions in that game. An outstanding game, probably our best girls contest that we've streamed so far this year was McClain 63, Piketon 61 in overtime. What a game.
I really, really, really enjoyed doing this game with you, John. Going into the game, I felt like McClain's physicality was the thing that jumped out at me about them, and I thought that was on display. Some big-time rebounding performances that I know you got us some more official numbers on that we'll highlight. And then on the Piketon side, they've just made such a growth over a 2.5-year period on varsity now, and you can start to see them go into these types of atmospheres, these types of games, even undersized, probably a little bit out-athleted in certain spots. Yep. It didn't matter. They were able to just kind of dig in and compete and play and find a way to stay in it. Obviously, Kelly was big time. And as a result, you get down to the end, and why not play a little bit more? It goes into overtime, and then we even get the buzzer beater, which I know you'll go through all the details, but it was a privilege just to kind of be a part of it. And again, one of those games where even if you don't have time to watch it all, go back and watch the fourth quarter overtime or whatever. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Yeah, it was just a outstanding high school basketball game, and it felt like back and forth throughout. Like they were just trading leads, and I know at one time I was like, they're just taking big swings at each other, and they just responding in a big way. If you just go back and watch the game, it was really good overall. And then every time there was a timeout, there was a run immediately after. I thought it was a well-coached game. I just thought it was a really good basketball game.
Yeah, McClain went up 6, I think, on 2 different occasions, and Piketon answered the bell immediately. Yeah.
They actually got up 7 late, and that was a play where Layla Kelly goes down, draws a foul, gets 2 shots. Yes. Then they're able to set up their defense, which was the first time they were able to do in a while. They get another basket. I think that one was Shanks, scores there, and then Kelly's able to hit the 3 to send it to overtime. And just overall, man, what a game this was. It was, I'll just start with that. Piketon's Layla Kelly, 34 points in the game. We knew that she had it in her to be able to have one of these really big breakout games, but man, I don't know if we expected a 34-point night, and then some gigantic shots down the stretch. She hits a 3 to send it to overtime. She hits a 3 late in overtime that forced something we'll talk about here in a second as well. She was outstanding all night.
She was, and it was a very efficient 34. It wasn't like she was just going out and taking 50 shots. She was very efficient. We always talk about the older you get, the game slows down. It almost felt that way watching her the other night. She was handling the ball cleanly, and she just had a real good feel for what McClain was trying to do defensively. When they were giving her space, she just kind of created that space and got the 3 ball off. When they got a little tight, she was able to handle the ball cleanly on some crossovers, get into the middle, some runners, Got to the free throw line, which obviously she's a terrific free throw shooter. But yeah, 34 points against an opponent of that level, that can go a long way in her confidence to lead her group down the stretch here.
Yeah, she was outstanding. Just overall, just a really dynamic performance from her. She made some big plays. She had several teammates that I think they all either had 5 or 6 points in the game. Nobody scored a ton, but made some big plays. That Hayden Daniels adjusted well. Reese Shanks, both were in foul trouble the entire game.
Yeah.
I thought they adjusted well. And then Jalen Forbes, I thought, played really good defense on Paisley Pryor.
Jalen Forbes was terrific because Pryor, I know you're going to talk about Pryor here in a second. Forbes was giving up a lot of size there, and her basketball IQ was really on display. She did such a good job of just competing. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're outmatched physically or whatever, it's easy just to quit on it. She just didn't do it. She just kept playing and playing and playing. Now, to Pryor's credit, how hard she played in return is probably why you're about ready to read off some numbers with Lovett and Henson that you're going to. And that's the sign of a great player is making the game easier for others to play around you. But I was just intrigued by that Pryor and Forbes matchup throughout the evening.
It's just a great high school basketball game. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. Like, we have highlights kind of everywhere at this point of, the very end of the game, Kelly's overall. I've got some time coming up, probably going to put together something on the entire game. When you got like 4 days of, they don't take that long. Yeah. Sometimes they do. Like if it's a really good game like this, they don't take that long because it's easy to go back and rewatch it. So, in the game, Leah Lovett led McClain with 24 points. I thought she was really good throughout. She did some really nice things overall for them. Just brings a toughness. Hit a three. Didn't shoot it super well at the free throw line, but being left-handed inside, I thought she scored the basketball really well for them. As we mentioned, the team high 24 points, and I actually got a verification on this number, which I'm going to update on our doc. Laura Henson, 18 points, 20 rebounds.
So we had her for 21.
Yeah, I had her for 21. There was one that was like iffy, and I would have been like, I'm the home book, I'm giving it to her. But I think it might have been Huddle stats of like. They're probably like super by the book on what this is, but I think it was a shot that I thought she got blocked on. She recovered it and then put it back up, and they may have just thought it was a lost ball.
Yeah, she was terrific. Some nights you're calling a game and you just get a feel as the game starts. And I made the comment somewhere in the second quarter of man, she's having a big night on the glass, and it was one of those where. She was just setting such a tone. Her versatility. I can't imagine very many teams having a front line of a Pryor, Lovett, Henson where you're going to be able to match up that physicality and that skill set. So I know it puts a little bit of pressure on the McClain guards, who I thought were pretty good the other night. Obviously, Piketon, their strength of their team is their guards. So that was a tough matchup for the McClain backcourt. But man, this front court of Pryor, Lovett, and Henson, they're legit.
Yeah, it's a group that is really tough.
They just shoot till they make sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean,
and man, it was it was a great game to watch. It was just a great game to be able to call. I thought our Kenneth did a really good job. Kenneth Hay, as always, does a really good job on that.
Shout out to McClain, too, because remember they had the bleacher problems there. I thought they set us up in a real fair area there, and we were able to get a good picture of it.
You might have seen us throughout the stream because, we couldn't get up as high as we normally do there, and Kenneth had to go on the other side. But overall,
it doesn't do it justice either, because if you know how big the other side of bleachers are, it probably makes the atmosphere look like it wasn't very good. In reality, it was very good, and it was a great game. Both crowds were into it, but the side where the camera was coming from had a really nice crowd.
Like, if Kenneth could have got where our camera normally is, wouldn't have been safe, which is why he wasn't there, obviously. But he gets on the other side, he shoots it over at our side. There's still some decent people here, but that visitor side at McClain was pretty well packed, so it was a really good atmosphere. Just a really fun game overall to call, and we have a player to celebrate. So it ends. Layla Kelly hits a three to tie the game in overtime. McClain gets the ball up to half court, calls timeout, and then they run a really nice play, get the ball to Henson in the corner, and then Pryor just crashed down to get the ball in the post and was finally able to score it in the post. She was just getting harassed all night. Had a hard time finishing, but man, she finished in a big way. Scores with about 5 seconds left. Kelly puts up a half quarter at near the buzzer, and it falls a little bit short, but Paisley Pryor ends up with only 12 points in the game, but gets the game winner, scores the biggest points of the game. And I thought they would do it a little differently, because that was kind of, we talked about that coming out of the timeout, but I'm like, you just get it to her, and you let Henson and Lovett go rebound. Well, they didn't have to, because Pryor's able to score it. So a huge play, and to me that says a lot about the McClain team, Paisley Pryor, her teammates, where it's like, yeah, we want the ball in her hands.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what the shooting numbers were on the night,
Yeah.
because she's going to make a play in the biggest moment for them.
That's well said. With the game on the line, and you had two teammates that obviously went completely off in Lovett and Henson that night. There was still, as you watched the play unfold, that there was no question where they wanted the ball to go, and rightfully so. A young lady went on to score 1,000 points later in the way. She and what I liked about it, she didn't shy away from it. She wanted the ball, and there's something to be said for that too. And she delivered for her team.
Yeah, but all three of them were included on the play, because Henson takes it out, finds Lovett. Lovett's the one that feeds it inside, and then Pryor scores it. As you mentioned, she got her 1,000th career point in a win at Jackson, which I think Jackson, if you're trying to score your 1,000th career point, you just need to go play at Jackson. That's the third time in 2 weeks they've had someone score their 1,000th career point down at Jackson on the boys and girls side. So congratulations to her. I saw her first career points, and that was one of those. Usually, like when I go to an interview after the game, I'll ask the coach, who can I talk to? Sometimes I'll just, or usually they say, who do you want? And I'll just say, them and them. And I know that night I was like, Paisley, and I don't, I think it was a senior that night. There wasn't a roster anywhere. Like I knew the players' names, like I had the roster, but I didn't have ages. So usually we do a breakdown. We edit the videos, so you don't hear us asking the questions. You don't hear me going like, oh, you just hear the kids talking. So when I've edited them, I'm trying to like add what they're talking about at least, but you don't want to hear us ask the questions, because it's whatever. So that usually what I do is, hey, good job. This is what we're going to talk about. Have you done one of these before? And Paisley just looks at me like, no. I'm like, what grade are you? And she said freshman. I was like, oh, all right. She did a great job on the first one. She always does a great job on the interviews, but it was like watching that night when she said freshman, I was like, oh, that's even better than, because it was a really good first game anyway. So I was able to see her first one, and then obviously she gets the 1,000 point against Jackson. So an outstanding player, can do it all kinds of different ways. Just seems like a really good kid as well.
Well, plenty of numbers to come for that young lady. I mean, not far from done. And as we talked about last week on the show, she stuffs the stat sheet. I mean, you go across that FAC and the top 5, and you'll just see her name glittered all over the place in just about every category they come up with.
Yep. And then let's jump over to I don't know how to describe this, because it's not an upset.
No, it's not.
It's just, but still kind of a surprising result because of what happened the first time. Circleville beats Logan on by 16 the first time they play. This time, just a complete switch in the game, a 16-point win for Logan Elm at Logan Elm, a 54-38 win over Circleville. Kiana Ingram, surprise, surprise, was outstanding for Logan Elm. She had 29 in the win. She hits 4 threes. Kimmy Petty hits 3 threes. She had 11. So those two combined for 40. Those two combined to beat Circleville, but their teammates were really good on the night as well. You have Wray, Molly Miller, Kennedy Groff, who's always outstanding. I really like what Malia Gardner and Jillian Savage bring for that team as well. So this might be the stat of the week. And I know Derek put it in his article, so it's not going to be like something you haven't heard if you read the article on sosaohio.com. It's the first time in 28 meetings that Logan Elm has beat Circleville. They are like 5 miles from each other, if even that. They play twice a year, sometimes more in the tournament. They have not beaten them in the previous 27 meetings. And here's where it gets crazy. 26 of those were by double digits.
Yeah. We had some comments earlier in the year about rivalries. And a lot of times when you don't get the back and forth, it doesn't really make the rivalry come to life. So probably over that type of stretch, I mean, you're talking over a decade of games when you're playing a couple times a year, you kind of lose a little bit of the meaning of it. And if they're not close on paper, they probably didn't even present themselves as big games. I think where this is huge. Now, in fairness to these kids, they don't care what happened 10 years ago.
Right.
They, you know what I mean, they're playing now. But even now as juniors and seniors, they've come through a career and they haven't been able to win. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a block. You know, I'd been part of a recent coaching staff that we were in a similar situation where we lost 20-some games, and then we ended up beating a team about 4 times in a row. But the first time was so hard. You know what I mean? Like just being able to do it. And this could matter not just for this Logan Elm team, but it could certainly help the program moving forward. But I think you and I were intrigued by this matchup the first time around, and it went the other way. You know, the dominance of Circleville's size took over. It sounds like in this one, right from the word go, Logan Elm's guard depth took over. They were able to shoot it a little bit better. They were able to use their spacing, their speed, their ball handling to get the game going more the way they like it. And as a result, the score went the other way.
Yeah, and it was a night where Ingram ends up with 11 points in the fourth quarter alone, including sealing with 5 of 6 at the line. And, you know, we mentioned Groff. She had 8 rebounds, 4 assists in the game. Wray had 4 assists as well. Those are players that can score in double figures as well, but didn't have to that night because of the night that Ingram had. But 29 points on 18 shots. Pretty efficient for a guard.
No question.
Yeah, and then they were able to hold Addison Edgington, hold her to 15 points, but she had 40 in the first time. So
I guarantee you they'd have signed up for 15 when the game started.
Yes, 100%. So overall, you know, they're now 15-1. They beat Liberty Union later in the week. Circleville 13-4. Both are, I think Circleville still has a half game lead over Logan Elm in the league, but overall it would be shocking if those two are not sitting atop of the league just based off their results against the other teams in the league the first time through. So more than likely you're going to see these two tied at the top of the MSL. We talked about McClain a lot too. Those 3 plus Hillsboro, that Division 4 is going to be really fun to watch.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull that up just to glance at it real quick. So, Division 4 in the Southeast, once again in the RPI.
So you got McClain and Hillsboro coming up. They're going to be playing for the league title.
Yep.
So you're saying in the Mid-State League, the gap between 2 and 3 is pretty big there. No one else really has.
Liberty Union is the other one. They're the third, but they just beat them on Saturday as well. Let me look at Circleville against Liberty Union and see if they have them a second time already. No, I don't want to help improve Max Preps. You're not going to listen. There's a lot of things to improve on there.
The Ingram 29, I've been so impressed with her game throughout her career in terms of how she continues to add. It's kind of like what we talked about with Kelly earlier. You know, there's early in your career, you have the ability to score, but then as the game slows down, it's like it becomes a little bit easier for you. It's not so forced. You know what I mean? You understand where you want to get your shots from, and there just seems to be a control. And I've been real impressed with Ingram in that situation this year.
Yeah, she has been just unbelievable so far throughout this season and throughout her career. They've still got Bloom Carroll at home, which is not the typical Bloom Carroll. Then Amanda at Hamilton Township, which are the 6th and 7th best teams in that league. And then they're at Fairfield Union to end their regular season, but they've got a really good chance to finish 21-1.
I'm sure the coaches appreciate you coming on here and just saying, yeah, we don't even really need to. Yeah.
No, it's still Fairfield Union. I mean, they still got to the Final Four last year, but they won.
The coaches are probably like turned to turn them off. That's what's it Saban used to call it, rat poison.
Yeah, so Fairfield Union has a chance to really shake things up, though, because they do play Circleville as well coming up. So Circleville has Amanda at Liberty Union, which Liberty Union's been the third best team throughout the league, and then Fairfield Union. So, but then they get a super easy one at Harvest Prep on February 5th, so that'll be fun. Congratulations to Logan Elm on the big win. I think we were hoping to have Coach Schultz on this week on the Haynesville Healthcare Coach's Call-In Show, but I'm probably not leaving my house for a few days after I go home after this. So, of course, we're like, well, let's do a quick episode, and that didn't happen, shockingly. So we're going to jump to our standout performances. I'm just going to do it at the end. I missed an ad read on the Piketon game. So
on the taking the charge.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end, and then I'll just plug it into something.
Okay.
So, hey, that might be better. This is great content, by the way. That might be better because then they won't even be on the podcast, and we'll just say, "Hey, you can see this on the podcast."
That's right.
Man, why had I not thought about doing that? I'm not very good at this stuff. So let's jump to our standout performances, and these ones are going to be a couple of milestone achievements. Obviously you can go to coaching achievements, you can go milestones. These ones are going to be milestones. And this first one, Fairland's Bailey Russell becomes Fairland's all-time leading scorer, 1,543 plus points now on her career. If you're going to be the all-time leading scorer at Fairland, you had to really, like we talked about it with like a Miley Smith with Unioto, that's a great program. They made it to the Final Four 3 times.
Yeah.
Well, this is a Fairland team that has made it 3 times in the last 3 years. So I mean, they're a program that has been unreal. Coach Buchanan's done a great job for Bailey Russell to become the all-time leading scorer, and then is going to make some serious room between her and the next player that has to come up and try to pass her. Is really impressive.
When we come up on these, sometimes you can get repetitive and just the impressive of the consistency, the longevity, all those different things. But like this truly is one of those times where it starts and ends with Fairland's all-time leading scorer. And that kind of, if you're familiar with basketball in the area at all, that's kind of like all that has to be said. You can just summarize it at that. And it takes on the whole meaning or the whole life of itself. And I've really enjoyed watching the young lady play and the way she carries herself, and as you do such a good job when you cover of kind of getting to know the kids and the backstories and some of the giving the coaches a platform to talk about their kids. And when you hear about the character and the work ethic, you love it when good things happen to really good people who work hard, and that's kind of what we have here.
Yeah, and that's the best way to describe it, because and they do some really cool stuff down at Fairland as well. I think we may have talked about it where they had that tri-state.
I never remember what we talk about on the air or when you and I are just like driving in the car going somewhere. Yeah.
So in case we didn't talk about it on here, they did they had the tri-state throwdown. It might be tri-state throwdown. I don't know. Sponsored by Ricky Shifko State Farm.
Oh, yeah.
That's a free
Shout out, Ricky.
I thought we weren't doing free ads, but someone said we're not doing free ads.
Ricky.
Yeah. So down in Proctorville. So when they had that a couple weeks ago, they had started with a junior high game. So they were showcasing Fairland, and then they had three varsity games. So you have the 7th grade, 8th grade, JV, then I think it went to 3 games after that. So the first game, Bailey Russell and Issa Telefaro are doing play-by-play on the game. And it's just that's a really cool thing, because then, those kids looking up to her and Issa are like, oh, they called my game. And it's just, it means a lot to the kids. So it means a lot to interact with the kids, but also those types of things. And you could tell they were getting better and better throughout the game. And then shout out, this is somebody completely different, but JHS Media down at Jackson, Sidney Carpenter calls a lot of their games, and like those are cool opportunities for kids in our area and everything. So
to give back, and you hope they understand, which they obviously do, that when they're calling some of those games to those kids on the court, that's like LeBron James calling it. Like they're LeBron James to those kids. You know what I mean? Like it's or a Caitlin Clark and the girls. You know what I mean? That's a big deal, and it's awesome to see older kids who get it.
Yep. They get it completely. So I mean, she breaks Bree Allen's record, which I think wasn't like a long, like she broke a record before her that wasn't long. It just seems like it's evolving to where they just keep breaking each other as this program just keeps getting better and better and better. And it's just, she had the game-winning 3 in our stream earlier this year over Portsmouth, and a great game there. We'll talk about that rematch coming up here shortly, but just an outstanding player. You got Addison Godby that's going on to Stetson, and then, as I mentioned, Telefaro, Tegan Leap. Now I'm blanking on the other senior who's been outstanding for them as well. But they're a team that Addison Cornell. So I mean they're a team that they're 14-3 right now. Russell's averaging 17 points a game. And just overall, they're a team that they score 68 points a game. Godby averages 10.8. Cornell averages 9.7. Telefaro averages 9.8.
Wow.
Then you got Lola Donahue, averages 6. Maybe that's a name to keep an eye out on in the future as well. And then you've got another Russell as well, with Riley Russell averaging 7.2. So, I mean, that's the team that can really score the basketball. And then you've got their all-time leading scorer in Bailey Russell.
Well, it's just, when you're reading off those totals, it's remarkable. And what's remarkable about it, we talk about this with the truly great teams, is you rattle off about those first 5 names, and every single one of them could average a higher number than they do, but there's one ball to go around, and they're more worried about going to the Final Four every year.
Yeah. They are just an outstanding group overall. Just really fun to watch, and looking forward to seeing them a few more times throughout this season. So now let's go to another 1,000-point achievement, which was over at Trimble. Rilynn Fouts scores her 1,000th career point. She had 19 points. Ended up being in a loss against Alexander, 61-57 loss against an Alexander, a little bigger school, and really competing well. Now the Tomcats 11-5 on the season, so Fouts has been a big part of a nice season for Trimble.
The 11-5 is what jumped out at me on the notes. Trimble had a phenomenal run there. If you go back about 5-6 years ago, maybe, might be a year or two more than that. Maybe I'm really getting old. They're really good. I mean, really good. And then, they kind of hit like a little rebuild factor there and so forth. And here come back to 61-57 to a really good Alexander team tells you that they're not that far off of playing with some pretty elite competition. So the 1,000-point score, doing it in a winning format more times than not, leading her group to 11-5 start, I think that says a lot about her overall leadership for her team as well.
Yeah, and it's, they don't play the easiest schedule because that TVC Hawking is an outstanding league. You get Fed Hawk a couple of different times each year, Eastern a couple times, Waterford, who's won 3 state titles in the last decade, Eastern, who's won a state title in the last decade, the Benton County's having a nice year. Belpre, who just came off a district championship. You're playing some really good teams, and to be able to score at a high level against a really good schedule, I think says a lot about her game.
The TVC, another conference that has been able to utilize the division to kind of modernize it.
Yep, 100% agree. So congratulations to her. As we mentioned on the boys' side as well, if you've got any athletes that we've missed anything on, just let us know, because we want to make sure to celebrate. We retroactively kind of celebrated Joe Wray a little bit from Westfall, because it was something that we had missed, and we were able to make sure we get it back and be able to talk about what these athletes have been able to do. So let's jump to. It's going to be kind of a shortened version, because we don't know what's going to happen this week of games of the week, games to watch. Maybe don't even know the rescheduled dates on some of these things. So let's jump to what could be one of the biggest games in our area in quite some time, maybe until a possible rematch in the state semifinal again. But for the OVC title, you've got Portsmouth at Fairland on Thursday night. It was a classic the first time they played. I wouldn't be surprised if it lived up to that again this time.
Yeah, I just don't see another scenario. You know what I mean? Like, you're just talking about two team. Portsmouth since that game is continued to make some tweaks and get better and better and better. They're coming off a really impressive weekend against some high level competition. So I just don't see another scenario than having an incredible game with incredible talent. I thought the first time these two teams played and you and Carson had to call, it was a high level girls game as I'd watched all year, and I don't see why this one wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. This one should be outstanding. Kiki Woods went ballistic over at the Classic of the Country, which is a great thing for the Trojans, because, man, if she can get going, you already have Sienna Allen, who's going to go play at OU. And then Haven Carter, if you can get those three scoring at a high level. We've talked about that with some of the other schools as well. I think with Fairland, you're going to get the full balance, because I rattled off 7 different players that can really score for them earlier. But for Portsmouth, if you can get those three all in double figures, the first game, Haven Carter had some big-time foul trouble, fouled out really early in the fourth of that game. If you can get all three of them, and
she probably didn't even play
10 minutes.
I was going to say 15 minutes. No way. So probably I mean,
so I mean, if there's not a ton of depth for Portsmouth as it is, they've got some. Every kid that they have can play. I mean, KK Meigs is going to go play at Shawnee State. Like, she just doesn't get mentioned a whole lot, because these other three, Bryce Shanton can really play. The other Allen can play as well. I mean, they've got some pieces, and that's why they won a state championship last year. That's why they're going to be a favorite to win whatever region they end up in. Right now, they're the 1 in the RPI. Fairland's the 2. The 1 gets to pick which region they go to. The 2 can pick which region they go to. So if they really want to, they can go separate like they did last year. And that way they would meet in the Final Four once again. There's a possibility with where they could meet, let's say, in the state championship game if things go a certain way of the bracketing. So this could be the second of a trifecta of games. And I think that there's a really good chance that these teams are going to see each other again, with even more on the line, but this is a big-time matchup for the OVC.
Yeah, what you're talking about there is so unique, because, I mean, you think over the years, you and I have been around this a long time, how many times you see the elite teams, and there's no way around them fighting in a district final because we only get one team out, or in a regional semi because, we got 2 teams out. What a unique perfect storm to have 2 teams of this level with an opportunity to do what you're talking about in the postseason. I know I'm kind of, moving past it. Right now, it's all about the OVC, and that's for another podcast down the road. That's just remarkable.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun for sure on this one on Thursday night, because you've got some really outstanding players, some really diehard fans as well, and you mentioned the opportunity later on where, like, a Division III doesn't even actually technically get a district title. They have to go beat someone from the East to get a district title. Division IV, you've got 5 outstanding teams, because we didn't even talk about Waverly at that time. You've got 5 outstanding teams that are going to play for 1 district title. And now in Division V, we've got 3 district titles. with a lot of outstanding teams as well.
Yeah.
But these two are really at the peak of that.
There's no question about it, and it's. I think I said this on the football show back when we were talking like Wheelersburg, Ironton, some of those schools. Yeah. It's really cool for Southeast Ohio because there's always been that stereotype of Southeast District. You know, like the Southeast getting to play on a state level type of stage and being able to showcase it at that level. That's awesome, and those two schools provide that for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned the that's the Southeast. Just heard about that at dinner last night a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, on some other stuff as well. That's not even just talking about on the field. It's off the field stuff as well. So make sure you tune in on that. The Fairland Sports Network will have that game, but get there in person. That should be an outstanding atmosphere as well. So Saturday, huge one down at Hillsboro. You've got McClain at Hillsboro, FAC title on the line. These two have just played 3 outstanding games over the last 2 seasons, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a 4th one here over at Hillsboro.
Yeah, just unbelievable matchup. You know, we highlighted the McClain kids earlier. Obviously, Davis leading the way there at Hillsboro, having a FAC Player of the Year type of year for sure. You know what I mean? This game will obviously have a lot to do with that as well. But give McClain and Hillsboro credit. I feel like the rest of the FAC's improved a little bit this year. So it hasn't been maybe as easy of path to get to this point as it was a year ago. They've had some tight games. The Miami Trace been able to stick their nose in. Courthouse sticking their nose in a little bit. But here they are again, and these two are going to battle it out. Hillsboro playing on the home court. You know, they're going to have a good atmosphere there, and they're going to be excited for the opportunity. Going to probably come down to McClain's guard play and the ability to handle the ball. Obviously, on that front line, we've already talked a lot about McClain's ability to, as I say, shoot till they make. What I mean by that is they're just so strong on the glass. They're just relentless. But if McClain's guards can really take care of the ball and provide just enough perimeter shooting when needed, that could be an X factor in this one.
Yeah, and this is a game where Tylee Davis leads the FAC in points and rebounding, 19.7 points a game, 12.1 rebounds. Paisley Pryor is second in points, 18.1 points. She's also third in rebounding at 8.9. Laura Henson averages 9.1 rebounds a game. Anaya Young for Hillsboro averages 7.8. She also blocks over a shot a game. And then, Davis averages 3 assists a game as well. Piper Wilkin averages almost 4 assists a game. Kobe Miles averages 11.2 points a game. So there's so many players that can really play on both teams. Going to make it a really fun matchup overall. Henson averages 10.3 points. Leah Lovett averages 9.4 points a game. This one should be outstanding.
McClain has to do what they do, be physical, bring the first punch. If you're Hillsboro, you've got to collectively rebound. You know, it's so difficult just to ask one person, hey, go clean the glass up. Against a team like McClain, you got to collectively rebound. You've got to get all 5 people to the defensive glass. If you're able to do that, you can maybe give McClain some fits in transition and secondary break with your quickness. And then again, I'll put the challenge back on the McClain backcourt to take care of the basketball. Any type of shot you get up on the glass can serve as a post feed the way they go offensive rebound, but you can't turn the ball over and cost yourself opportunities to shoot and maybe shoot again. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you got to take care of the ball. If you're Hillsboro, apply that ball pressure, see if you can't create some easy opportunities to get your guards out in the open court.
Yeah, it should be a really fun atmosphere over there on Saturday afternoon over at Hillsboro. Should be a great game. A must-watch game, I would say.
Oh, no question. I look forward to getting a chance to hopefully see it live, depending on what our schedule, the time. What time do we know the time on that? Is that a day game or a night game?
It's a day game. So there's a possibility of getting over there early and then us still getting over to.
You sure we don't want to do doubleheader that day?
Talk to Carson. I mean, we could.
Okay.
Talk to Carson. It could be a stream. We're maybe going to be down there during the week anyway, so might be a good idea to keep your eyes out on that one.
Where are we at that now? We said Waverly?
Yeah, we're at Waverly and Jackson. So keep your eyes peeled for that on Saturday. Should be a really fun game for sure. So, that's a lot of snow. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah,
while
be
you're out.
safe.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't buy.
Watch a lot of SOSA. I mean, you're going to
Yeah.
be sitting around anyway. Watch some different streams. Aren't we putting out some favorite type of games?
Yeah, we're gonna put out something on Sunday. So if you didn't see it, you will see it. Just some of the best games that we've done so far in the winter, but that doesn't mean some of the other ones haven't been outstanding as well, because we've had a lot of really tight
when you
games.
sent that text out, it was impossible because like I'll give you an example. The Westfall Southeastern girls game, that's not going to get the attention. Southeastern's had a really good second half here since Ruckles returned too, by the way, on the girls' side. But that was a great game. You know what I mean? That was a great finish. It may not get the same attention because those two teams maybe aren't having the same type of record as McClain and Hillsboro.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't a fun game to watch.
Right. So, just keep your eye out on that when it comes out. I think I'm going to try to get Derek and Brock to put something together for their articles on the best games they've covered as well. So, and then as always, just watch all of our, if you got time, if you want to. I mean, you got the Haynesville Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show. You've got, a bunch of overtimes presented by Perfection One. And then, since we've been in the Chillicothe Sports Card studio over the last month and a half, I think our quality of content has gone up as well. So keep an eye out on that. But really, stay safe, stay warm.
Yeah.
Let's hope the electricity stays on and just kind of be good to each other. Well, everything's kind of crazy right now. I know I stopped by a local grocer earlier, and I was shocked because everything I'd seen was like, it was crazy. It was a madhouse. I walked in, it was just normal. So I was very happy to see that. So get to your local grocers. Don't buy 19 gallons of milk. Just buy what you need. What was it in It's a Wonderful Life? I've got $247 or $242. That's not going to break anybody. It's like, how much do you need? I want it all. And then ask the next lady, how much do you need? $17.50. And it's just like, yeah, just do what you need. You don't need to go crazy. That's a good way to end this show. So
That is a good one.
It's a great movie. So you got anything else? That's a big lot of snow.
There's no way I could even top that.
Yeah,
we have to end it now.
A lot of snow or asbestos, whatever, came down. I think most people were okay after that. There's some other movies where people were not okay after the shootings of them. So, shout out Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart. So, and Donna Reed. Donna Reed, that was the big one. She's the best wife there in movie history. So, you good?
Yeah.
We didn't have a producer this week. We had Kenneth last week, so
that's where it all went south.
Yeah,
I mean, we were
100%.
just in here by ourselves. No one liked to
no one to just look back there and him just shake his head. So so that'll be it for this week. For Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.